Chapter 1659. Apart from the mystic heaven record, there were many other cultivation techniques and secret skills in the storage bag. Most of them were Buddhist cultivation techniques from the 6 monasteries of the Buddhist monasteries. Some of those cultivation techniques were top-tier dharmic and secret skills. However, there were many that were purely ancient sutras or incantations to calm one's mind. Those Buddhist cultivation techniques filled Monk Daming's storage bag to the brim. Why are you collecting so many ancient books of the Buddhist monasteries? Wu Dao's true body asked. If Monk Daming wanted to raise his cultivation, all he had to do was cultivate the top-tier Buddhist cultivation techniques. However, most of the things in the storage bag were Buddhist sutras that were not offensive. Those Buddhist sutras were meant for monks in the mortal world to spread their teachings. Although Wu Dao's true body refined all dharmic arts, those sutras were nothing to him and he would not spend the effort to read them. Given Monk Daming's frightening intelligence, why would he do something as lame as that? Monk Daming remained silent when he heard the question from Wu Dao's true body. Wu Dao's true body rummaged through the storage bag and kept a few top-tier Buddhist cultivation techniques before tossing the storage bag to Monk Daming. Monk Daming frowned slightly and hesitated. I'll naturally return these cultivation techniques to their rightful owners after I read them. As though he could read Monk Daming's mind, Wu Dao's true body replied. You should be at the Mahayana realm soon. Wu Dao's true body smiled gently. I'll be waiting for you at the front. If you're indignant about your defeat today, we'll fight again. With that said, Wu Dao's true body turned around and headed into the distance. Monk Daming frowned and could not help but ask, You're leaving just like that? Didn't you want to kill me just now? It was just a casual remark. I just wanted to beat you up. The voice of Wu Dao's true body sounded. By the time he said the last word, his figure had already vanished completely. Monk Daming had a blank expression. Who was that mysterious purple-robed man? Even after the two of them fought, he could not tell what cultivation technique the mysterious person possessed. That was way too strange. Why did the mysterious purple-robed man want to beat him up when he came looking for him? Although Monk Daming was terrifyingly intelligent, he could not guess that the mysterious person was Su Zimo's third true body, Araki Takashi's true body. Monk Daming pondered for a moment and extended his palm, his eyes misty as he pinched his fingers and began divining. Over the years, he had long since memorized the contents of the mysterious heaven record. He had also cultivated the secret deduction techniques involved to an extremely deep level. After a moment, Monk Daming shuddered and the fog in his eyes dissipated. In fact, there were even streaks of blood vessels in his eyes. He didn't manage to deduce anything. There was no result. Not only that, but he also suffered quite a bit of backlash. Fortunately, he had cut off the deduction process in time. Otherwise, his eyes might have gone blind. Monk Daming. Is Monk Daming. Taking a deep breath of air, Monk Daming composed himself and murmured softly, Once I advance to the Mahayana realm, I'll naturally look for you to fight if there's a chance. Enigma Palace. Su Zimo retracted his consciousness and no longer paid attention to Wu Dao's true body. Indeed, Monk Daming had many trump cards and was more terrifying than he had imagined. However, he was still suppressed mercilessly against Wu Dao's true body. All schemes were nothing in the face of absolute power. The convention of the myriad races in Enigma Palace was still ongoing. Time passed by bit. The convention lasted for a full 7 days before it came to an end. The outcome of the convention of the myriad races was confirmed as well. The territories of the primordial 8 races could be expanded by 10 times. However, the primordial 8 races could not kill all living beings and humans in the expanded territories as they wished. They had to give the living beings the freedom to choose whether to stay in the distance or migrate. The experts of the primordial races could leave their respective forbidden grounds and no longer had to stay in a corner. However, if they entered the territories of other races, they could not injure anyone as they wished. The future of Tianhuang mainland would be the coexistence of the 10,000 races. Over the past few days, some news arrived at Enigma Palace one after another. A mysterious person barged into the 3 super sects of Heavenly Dipper sect, Malevolent Earth sect and Penglai Island and swept away all the cultivation techniques and secret skills in the library. It was said that the disciples of these sects were all defeated when they fought against the mysterious person. Among them, even the patriarch died. Nobody could see the appearance of the mysterious person clearly. Nobody could tell the cultivation technique inheritance of the mysterious person either. Everything was a mystery. The patriarchs of Heavenly Dipper sect, Malevolent Earth sect, and Penglai Island naturally had terrible expressions. All the cultivators knew that this was definitely not a coincidence. At the beginning of the convention of the myriad races, the 3 super sects were the first to submit to the primordial races. It was clear that the mysterious person did it on purpose. Some of the cultivation techniques and secret skills in the library were passed down through the ages. The loss this time round was a huge loss for the 3 super sections. Even if there were some cultivation methods and secret skills that had been cultivated by the experts of the sect, it was still extremely difficult to write down every single word of these cultivation methods and secret skills. Although the foundations of the 3 super sects were still present, the loss of the cultivation techniques in the library this time round was equivalent to shaking the foundations of the 3 super sects. "Don't let me know who you are," the patriarch of Malevolent Earth sect said hatefully, "otherwise, I'll definitely tear you into pieces." "Fufu." Su Zimo sneered coldly, "You're ferocious to human cultivators but obedient to the primordial races. Truly capable." The patriarch of Malevolent Earth sect narrowed his eyes and glared at Su Zimo with an unfriendly expression. "But you want to fight?" Su Zimo's gaze was filled with killing intent. The Malevolent Earth sect patriarch tilted his head slightly and avoided Su Zimo's sharp gaze without saying anything. Araki Takashi was no longer the half-martial ancestor that they could suppress casually before the convention of the 1,000 races. Right now, Araki Takashi was at the Mahayana realm and was already a patriarch expert. More importantly, the human emperor had personally issued a decree to pass down the position and seal of the human emperor to Su Zimo personally. This was something that the entire world knew about. It could be said that right now, Araki Takashi was the new human emperor in the hearts of all living beings in the world. Furthermore, this was Enigma Palace. The dragons, guardians, and Enigma Palace's Dark Lord were here. Even if he had 100 guts, he would not dare to attack Araki Takashi here. Some Mahayana patriarchs exchanged glances without saying anything in tacit understanding. Now that Araki Takashi was at the Mahayana realm, he would definitely head to the ancient battlefield. Many experts in the ancient battlefield would be interested in Araki Takashi. At that moment, Su Zimo looked at the crack in the firmaments with a worried expression. That crack was left behind by the arrival of the human emperor in Tianhuang mainland. Although the human emperor had left, cracks had already appeared in Tianhuang mainland. Heaven and earth were flawed and the laws were in chaos. Nobody knew what kind of impact it would have. The crisis of the primordial races was temporarily resolved. However, Tianhuang mainland was still in a precarious situation with some hidden dangers. Once those hidden dangers were to erupt, they might be even more terrifying than the primordial 6 races. End of chapter. Chapter 1660. Brother Su, what are you worried about? Lin Xuanji asked. Now that the old storyteller was fine, Lin Xuanji was in a great mood and relaxed completely. Nothing much, Su Zimo replied casually. Lin Xuanji smiled. Don't worry, Tianhuang mainland will welcome a long period of peace after today. All races will coexist without interfering with one another. The Ming Shaman Emperor and Golden Crow Emperor were severely injured by Senior Human Emperor and will probably have to recuperate for at least 1,000 years. Even if the 2 emperors recover after 1,000 years, there's still Senior Qianlong, Su Zimo nodded. Qianlong had at least 10,000 years left in his lifespan. In other words, within these 10,000 years, the primordial races would have their reservations and would not dare to start a war recklessly. However, Su Zimo was worried about something else. Come to think of it, 10,000 years have passed since the catastrophe of Great Qian, Su Zimo murmured softly. There were still powerful existences in Tianhuang mainland that even he did not dare to come into contact with. However, none of those experts appeared during the meeting of the 1,000 races. In Thousand Demon Valley, there was a powerful existence that severely injured Long Ran beneath the 1,000-year Blood Sea. Long Ran did not even see what was in the depths of the Blood Sea and was almost killed. There was another person. It was the Saber Emperor, Smoky Guest. Although that person had saved Su Zimo before, he still felt that there was something strange about him. What was even stranger was that back in Thousand Demon Valley, that powerful existence in the 1,000-year Blood Sea had saved him once as well. Why was that? Apart from that hidden danger, there was also the crack in the firmaments. This was something that the human emperor had told Su Zimo in private. Su Zimo did not intend to make it public as well. Nobody knew what kind of impact it would have if the world was flawed and the laws were chaotic. If he were to say it now, it would only bring about unnecessary panic. No matter what, he had to make sure that the strength of the human race grew as soon as possible. At that thought, Su Zimo stood up and stood out the moment the event came to an end and the major sects and factions had yet to leave. Everyone please wait. Su Zimo raised his voice. All the cultivators of the major sects and factions turned around and looked at Su Zimo. In Su Zimo's palm was a black, crystalline fruit that exuded a strong murderous aura. Abyssal Spirit Fruit. Many experts exclaimed as they recognized the fruit immediately. Just now, when Su Zimo was breaking through to the Mahayana realm and undergoing the divine power tribulation, he had swallowed a baneful spirit fruit. When the half-martial ancestor-level experts from the various sects and powers saw the fruit, their gazes all became somewhat fervent. Senior Araki Takashi, are you going to auction this fiend spirit fruit? Snowdrift Valley's Valley Master asked respectfully. If it's an auction, I'm willing to offer my treasures, cultivation techniques, or secret arts in exchange with Senior Araki Takashi. Even though Su Zimo was young, he was already a senior to a half-martial ancestor. I can use Dharma treasures to exchange for it. A half-martial ancestor of Heavenly Dipper sect spoke hurriedly. I once obtained a Dharma treasure in an ancient site and initially wanted to keep it for myself. But today, I can bear with the pain and use it to exchange for the Abyssal Spirit Fruit. At the level of half-martial ancestors and patriarchs, any random item was a priceless treasure and most of them could only be bartered. As he said that, the half-martial ancestor of Heavenly Dipper sect took out a jade water sword from his storage bag. The sword looked extremely ancient. However, the moment it was taken out, a cold glint shone on its body like water ripples and was extremely sharp. It was indeed an extraordinary Dharma treasure. I can use a lesser divine power to exchange for the Abyssal Spirit Fruit. A half-martial ancestor of Malevolent Earth sect could not help but stand out as well. I once obtained a piece of beast skin with the remnant power of the divine power lingering on it. If you can obtain that piece of beast skin and comprehend it, you'll definitely be able to comprehend the lesser divine power on it. A commotion broke out in the crowd. One after another, half-martial ancestors stood out and took out many treasures, wanting to exchange it with the Abyssal Spirit Fruit in Araki Takashi's hands. The Abyssal Spirit Fruit was way too attractive to half-martial ancestors. They would only have the chance to comprehend and use those Dharma treasures and divine powers after advancing to the Mahayana realm. If they failed their tribulation transcendence, everything would be over. Su Zimo had an indifferent expression as he pressed down with his palm. The voices in the crowd gradually quieted down. Su Zimo looked at Snowdrift Valley's Valley Master and smiled gently, tossing the Abyssal Spirit Fruit over. The Abyssal Spirit Fruit turned into a streak of light and arrived before Snowdrift Valley's Valley Master. Senior, Snowdrift Valley's Valley Master caught the Abyssal Spirit Fruit and could not understand it for a moment as he stammered, "What treasure does Senior need? You haven't told me yet. What if I don't have it?" "There's no need." Su Zimo waved it off and pointed to the injuries on Snowdrift Valley's Valley Master that had yet to heal. "Your injuries are worth this Abyssal Spirit Fruit." As the master of a sect, Snowdrift Valley's Valley Master felt as though the softest part of her heart had been struck at that moment, and her eyes reddened. In the battle against the various ferocious races earlier on, Snowdrift Valley's Valley Master led the disciples of the sect behind him to fight against the various ferocious races. He took the lead and narrowly escaped death. Snowdrift Valley's Valley Master's injuries had yet to heal even after the past few days. Without the Abyssal Spirit Fruit, her chances of transcending the divine power tribulation were extremely slim. The Abyssal Spirit Fruit reignited her hope. In the battle a few days ago, the human race faced an extremely dangerous situation. Sword Sect, Zephyr Thunder Palace, Chaos Essence Sect and many other sects watched by the sidelines, not daring to clash head-on against the primordial races. As for Heavenly Dipper Sect, Malevolent Earth Sect and Punglai Island, they had already submitted to the 6 primordial races. Snowdrift Valley, Overlord Palace and other sects were the only ones who stood out and joined forces with Monkey, Night Spirit and the others to fight against the 6 primordial races. Snowdrift Valley, Overlord Palace and the other sects suffered heavy casualties. Even though Su Zimo did not say anything about it, he had seen it all. Su Zimo slapped his storage bag and took out dozens of Abyssal Spirit Fruits. Pissed. The crowd sucked in a breath of cold air. Instantly, Su Zimo attracted countless scorching gazes. Many cultivators were swallowing their saliva. Su Zimo looked at the Overlord Palace Master and the others and said in a deep voice, "Just now, any half-martial ancestor who survives the battle against the 6 primordial races can come to me for a Abyssal Spirit Fruit without any treasures." The moment he said that, the crowd erupted. Human Emperor! Human Emperor! Many cultivators and half-martial ancestors of Snowdrift Valley, Overlord Palace, and the others chanted the Human Emperor's name. "Senior Araki Takashi, what about us?" The Patriarch of Heavenly Dipper Sect said embarrassedly, "We're willing to use Dharma treasures and divine powers to exchange for it. Senior, please give us some Abyssal Spirit Fruits." You guys, please remember this book's domain name, mobile version. Chapter 1661. The half-martial ancestors of Heavenly Dipper Sect and Malevolent Earth Sect looked terrible. No one could take it lying down after being berated by Su Zimo in front of everyone. However, none of them dared to retort. Furthermore, the fact that Su Zimo distributed the Bane Spirit Fruits to Snowdrift Valley's Valley Master and the others unconditionally caused the cultivators of those sects to feel deep respect for Su Zimo as well. It was just as the cultivators were shouting, in their hearts, Su Zimo was the new human emperor. Patriarch Araki Takashi, Sword Sect has never submitted to the 6 primordial races. I wish to use treasures to exchange for a Bane Spirit Fruit, Sword Sect Patriarch could not help but say as well. Patriarch Araki Takashi, the feud between you and Zephyr Thunder Palace is actually just between some juniors. It's nothing much, Zephyr Thunder Palace's master said with a smile as well. I wonder if the half-martial ancestors of Zephyr Thunder Palace have a chance of obtaining the Bane Spirit Fruit. Of course, Su Zimo nodded. Sword Sect Patriarch, Zephyr Thunder Palace's master and the other experts were delighted as they said hurriedly, Patriarch Araki Takashi is magnanimous. Thank you, Patriarch. Su Zimo said indifferently, I can give you guys the Bane Spirit Fruit, but you guys have to serve me from now on. If you disobey, you'll die on the spot. The smiles on Sword Sect Patriarch and the others froze. Just now, none of the super sects such as Sword Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace stood out. If they gave the Bane Spirit Fruits to those people, it would be akin to feeding dogs. Sword Sect Patriarch and the others had grim expressions. Eventually, they could not make up their minds and remained silent. The old storyteller watched from the side and nodded to himself. If they distributed the Bane Spirit Fruits, the half-martial ancestors of Snowdrift Valley and the other sects and factions would have a much higher chance of advancing to the Mahayana realm. That way, the human patriarchs would grow significantly in a short period of time. The overall strength of the human race would also experience a huge leap. These human half-ancestors who had eaten the baneful spirit fruit had all fought bloody battles against the various fierce races and survived. After this baptism, if these half-martial ancestors could step into the Mahayana realm, they would have a promising future. Most importantly, hot blood flowed within the bodies of these half-martial ancestors. If the human race were to encounter another crisis, these half-martial ancestors would definitely step forward without any hesitation. To think that the three super sects, Heavenly Dipper Sect and Penglai Island, were the first to submit to the six primordial races. Yet, in the end, they ended up in the worst state. That's right. Putting aside the fact that their lair was raided, they also suffered heavy losses during the Convention of 1,000 Clans. Many experts died. The era of Araki Takashi is coming. Well, Araki Takashi stepped into the Mahayana realm, and then the human emperor passed on the throne, gathering the destiny of the world. The general trend has been formed. I am afraid it will be difficult to stop his rise. The meeting came to an end. Although the beings of all races had retreated, they were still discussing the meeting. In fact, for a long time to come, the general meeting of the 1,000 races would become the focal point of all living beings in Tianhuang mainland. The territory of the Protoss of the primordial 9 races did not expand at all. Furthermore, the Protoss were not allowed to leave their habitats. If any of the Protoss stepped foot into Tianhuang mainland, all living beings of all races could kill them. Although the heavenly Shenhuang was dead, the foundation of the Protoss was still not to be underestimated after all these years. Naturally, the human race could not take them head-on. As for the various primordial races, they were worried that the Protoss would fight to the death. That was why they did not kill them off. The crowd of the 10,000 races gradually retreated. The various primordial races bade farewell as well. The Dragon Phoenix true body would return to the Dragon Bone Valley to cultivate in seclusion with Emperor Qianlong. After that battle and watching the battle of many top-tier emperors, the Dragon Phoenix true body had gained a lot of insight. Enigma Palace was filled with blood and corpses. It was a ruin left behind by the Battle of Emperors and was in a state of devastation. Many cultivators of Enigma Palace were cleaning up. There were many treasures in the storage bags of those experts. Although they could not make up for the losses of Enigma Palace, it was still a considerable gain. Master, think of a way to save senior sister. Xiao Yao ran out with a white cat in his arms. At that moment, Su Zimo remembered about Kitsune and hurriedly took the white cat from Xiao Yao's arms. Arriving before the old storyteller, he said, "Senior, this white cat is my personal disciple. She was affected by a divine power of the animal Tao and was reduced to a white cat. I wonder if you can change her back, Senior?" The old storyteller shook his head slightly. The animal Tao is only a minor divine power. I can naturally remove the animal Tao from the white cat's body. However, she has been affected by the divine power of the animal Tao for too long. If I were to forcefully expel the power of the divine power from her body, I can't guarantee if there will be any problems left behind. Su Zimo looked worried. The old storyteller changed the topic. You don't have to worry. As long as you release a human Tao divine power, you'll be able to resolve the animal Tao perfectly and restore your disciple to her original state. Kong Yun, it'll depend on your capabilities. The old storyteller looked at the Emperor of Titanium Monastery beside him and said with a smile. The Emperor named Kong Yun put his palms together and chanted a Buddhist mantra. Don't worry, Benefactor Araki Takashi. Watch as I transform this benefactor back. As he said that, Kong Yun circulated his essence spirit and extended his finger. A powerful divine power gathered on his fingertip and landed on the white cat in Su Zimo's arms. The white cat's body emitted a mysterious luster that resembled ripples. Under everyone's watchful eyes, the white cat gradually disappeared in the luster and was replaced by a beautiful and flawless woman in Su Zimo's arms. It was Kitsune. Su Zimo sized up Kitsune and sensed the condition of her body before heaving a sigh of relief. Her body was fine. The animal Tao had been perfectly resolved. Master! Kitsune's face blushed slightly as she called out softly. Only then did Su Zimo snap out of his daze and burst into laughter. He placed Kitsune down hurriedly and turned to bow deeply to Monk Kongyun. Thank you, Senior. Kitsune bowed to Monk Kongyun as well and thanked him sincerely. Senior sister, do you still recognize me? Xiao Yao leaned over with a grin. When I first saw you, you were still an egg. How would I recognize you now that you've changed so much? Kitsune smiled and shook her head gently. Su Zimo smiled. You guys can leave. Let's talk somewhere else. Bai Mingshui and Unfettered bowed and retreated. Unfettered chattered non-stop around Bai Mingshui on the way back. Zimo, I'm going to enter the human emperor's palace for now. The old storyteller asked, what do you plan to do next? Take a break and prepare to enter the ancient battlefield, Su Zimo said in a deep voice. This ancient battlefield was a remnant world of the ancient war where many emperors had fought. There were many mystic skills that were preserved within. It could be in some historical site, on a corpse, in the mountains, rivers, or even among the flowers and trees. Nobody could say for sure what sort of fortuitous encounters one would encounter inside. Since you're going to enter the ancient battlefield, I'll give you a few instructions, the old storyteller said. There's a restriction left behind by the human emperor in the past in the ancient battlefield that prevents emperors of the ferocious races from entering. You don't have to worry about that. However, that doesn't mean that there's no danger in the ancient battlefield at all. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version. Chapter 1662. The old storyteller nodded. That's right. The human emperor's seal is a great weapon of Tianhuang mainland. Once it descends, it can suppress mountains and rivers for thousands of kilometers. Even Tianhuang Shenhuang and the others are wary of it. Now that the human emperor's seal is in your hands, I'm guessing that there will definitely be people who will fight for it. You have to be careful, Su Zimo nodded. This was a form of training for him by the human emperor and the reason why the human emperor's seal was left behind. He had to experience all of that if he wanted to grow faster. If he followed the rules and continued comprehending divine powers one after another in the ancient battlefield, he might not be able to become an emperor even after 10,000 years, let alone 1,000 years. The old storyteller thought for a moment and continued, there are 36 positions on the divine powers ranking and emperors are not among them. In other words, the divine powers ranking are all Mahayana patriarchs. If the divine powers ranking was just an empty title, there was no need to fight for it. Su Zimo was not bothered about something like that. He had only fought for the phenomenon ranking once out of the mystic 3 rankings. The divine powers ranking was established by ancestor Linglong in the ancient era. Empty titles are only secondary, the old storyteller shook his head. Most importantly, there are 36 great divine powers nurtured in the divine powers ranking. The higher one's ranking, the more great divine powers will be imparted onto the divine powers ranking. The old storyteller said, for example, those ranked 36th on the divine powers ranking will inherit a great divine power from the divine powers ranking. Those ranked 35th will inherit 2 great divine powers. Those ranked number 1 on the divine powers ranking will inherit a total of 36 great divine powers. After pausing for a moment, the old storyteller continued, that's not all. The divine powers ranking was personally refined by the human emperor and 6 supreme divine powers of the human emperor are fused into it. If one is ranked top 6 on the divine powers ranking, there's even a chance for them to inherit a supreme divine power from the human emperor. Su Zimo nodded to himself. In that case, the competition for the rankings on the divine powers ranking would definitely be intense. It was not for the sake of empty titles, but for immense benefits. One would be able to comprehend an additional great divine power by advancing one's ranking. Comprehending one more great divine ability would result in an extremely obvious increase in one's battle prowess, and one would have the opportunity to charge for a higher ranking on the divine ability ranking. This was a virtuous cycle. Moreover, the top 6 of the divine ability ranking would be able to obtain a peerless divine ability from the primeval human emperor. Of course, this kind of inheritance couldn't let the Mahayana ancestor comprehend a peerless magical ability in an instant. It also required the Mahayana ancestor to cultivate, settle, accumulate, and comprehend for a long time. But a peerless divine ability was too precious, and this opportunity was too hard to come by. Even in the primordial battlefield, the probability of finding a peerless mystique was extremely low. What's more, it was a peerless divine ability cultivated by the eternal human emperor. It was not hard to imagine that the battles between the top 6 of the divine ability ranking would be even more intense. A cold glint flashed in Su Zimo's eyes, and he said in a low voice, "If that's the case, I still have to fight for the divine ability ranking." "We must fight for it," the old storyteller said. "However, you have to know that those who can be ranked on the divine powers ranking, even the 36th place on the divine powers ranking, are all at the perfected Mahayana realm. You must not underestimate them." One had to comprehend at least 10 great divine abilities in order to enter the perfected Mahayana realm. It was clear how intense the divine abilities ranking was. Of the 34th, 27th and 21st places on the divine abilities ranking, Patriarch Yu Luo, Patriarch Fadewan and Patriarch Su Jing had appeared at the Myriad Races meeting. 2 of them were killed by the Dragon Phoenix true body, leaving only Patriarch Su Jing alive. The 3 of them were at perfected Mahayana realm. After all, Qinglian's true body was not the forbidden Dragon Phoenix and had yet to grow to its peak. She had just reached grade 8 and her cultivation realm was at early stage Mahayana realm. If she were to go against a perfected Mahayana, she would definitely have no chance of winning. However, Qinglian's true body had immense potential. If she continued to grow and refine her divine abilities or even peerless divine abilities, she might be able to fight against an emperor weapon at peak grade 8. If she were to grow to grade 9, the old storyteller said, "I've entered the human emperor's palace this time round to accept its inheritance. As for the palace guardian, he has to undergo his tribulation as well. I might not be able to help you for the time being." As for these 5 fellow Taoists, the old storyteller looked at the 5 emperors beside him. "They joined forces with me and forcefully released the divine abilities ranking to suppress the ferocious races. However, they suffered a backlash as well. I'm afraid they'll have to recuperate for at least 1,000 years. You're the only one in the ancient battlefield. You must be careful." Su Zimo nodded. The old storyteller gave a few more reminders before turning to leave and entering the human emperor's palace with the palace guardian. Rumble. The human emperor's palace tore through the air and disappeared from everyone's line of sight. Thereafter, Monk Kong Yun and the other 4 emperors left one after another. The clamor in Enigma Palace gradually dissipated and peace was restored. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he thought of someone. He looked around but could not find any trace of that person. Princess Yufei. During the Myriad Races meeting, he had not expected that Princess Yufei would stand out when his life was hanging by a thread. But now, Princess Yufei had long left and no one knew where she was. Su Zimo sighed gently. Before he could thank Princess Yufei had already left silently. Little Fox walked over and blinked. There was a hint of reluctance in her eyes as she asked softly, "Young master, are you leaving again?" Monkey and the others looked at Su Zimo expectantly as well. Although they were reluctant, they did not say anything. The 7 of them had spent most of their time apart over the years. The 100 years they spent together in the 1,000 Demon Valley was a rare time where no one disturbed them. "There's no hurry," Su Zimo smiled gently. "Now that the matter of the ferocious races is settled, we can rest for a period of time. At that time, call Night Spirit over and let's have a good gathering." "Sure." Little Fox could not help but clap and cheer. Monkey thumped his chest in excitement. Linghu grinned as well. A warm current flowed through Su Zimo's heart when he saw that. The crisis of the human race might not have disappeared just yet. However, Tianhuang mainland would welcome a period of relative peace after the meeting of the 1,000 races. Su Zimo believed that with these brothers by his side, they would be able to tide through whatever Tianhuang mainland faced in the future. For the next period of time, the Dragon Phoenix true body returned to the land of the ancestral dragon to cultivate. In Pingyang town, Wu Dao's true body refined many cultivation techniques and secret skills that he had obtained and fused them into Wu Dao's great furnace in preparation to break through to the Mahayana realm. In the next few years, Su Zimo returned to 100 Refinement Sect to break through to the Mahayana realm with Guardian Extreme Fire. He brought Xiaoning, Jiqing Tian, Leng Ro, Little Fatty and the others back to Misty Peak to reunite with the old immortal Crane and the others. He even went to the capital of Great Zhou to chat with Yao Shui and reminisce about the past. All these years, as the Empress of Great Zhou, Yao Shui had spent most of her energy on governing the Great Zhou Empire. Naturally, her cultivation speed was much slower. Right now, Yao Shui had only just entered the void reversion realm. The distance between the two of them was actually increasing. However, after experiencing so much back then, Yao Shui would always be a special and irreplaceable person in Su Zimo's heart. Later on, Su Zimo, Night Spirit, Monkey and the others roamed the 8 demon regions. In order to investigate the cause of Qing Qing's father's death, they went to the Thousand Spider Sand Dune and caused a huge ruckus. Even the demon patriarch of the Thousand Spider Sand Dune did not dare to appear. The 7 brothers even roamed the 3 seas and obtained countless rare treasures before returning to Tianhuang mainland. 10 years later. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version. Chapter 1663. Suddenly, a gap opened up in the void of the ancient battlefield and a green-robed cultivator entered in a flash. He had delicate features and was none other than the Araki Takashi patriarch, Su Zimo. The surroundings were barren. It was a desert without any signs of life. Su Zimo released his spirit consciousness and sensed carefully. Indeed, the ancient battlefield was different from Tianhuang mainland. The ancient battlefield was a world of its own, and within this world, there were remnant powers of many divine powers that did not dissipate throughout the ages and possessed a powerful might. If a conjoint body mighty figure were to enter, their bodies would not be able to withstand the pressure and would be squeezed into a blood mist, dying. A gigantic golden scroll hovered in the skies of the ancient battlefield. It was the divine ability ranking that had once descended upon Enigma Palace to suppress the ferocious races. Although the ancient battlefield was extremely vast, one could see the divine ability ranking in the skies from every corner of the battlefield. That was the center of the entire ancient battlefield. Right now, Su Zimo was only at early stage Mahayana and was in no hurry to fight for a spot on the divine ability ranking. Right now, the most important thing for him was to comprehend as many lesser divine abilities as he could and temper his Qinglian true body continuously. As long as he could comprehend enough lesser divine abilities, he could attempt to comprehend greater divine abilities. To begin with, the creation Qinglian true body nurtured some divine powers. There were lesser divine abilities, greater divine abilities, and even a supreme divine ability, endless vitality. Of course, the process was a gradual one. No matter how talented Su Zimo was, he could not comprehend a supreme divine ability and become an emperor directly. Su Zimo intended to roam around first to see if he could find some lesser divine abilities to comprehend and cultivate. Su Zimo did not distinguish the direction and advanced in the desert. Every single grain of sand and rock in the ancient battlefield could contain some sort of divine ability. Su Zimo walked extremely slowly and did not search his surroundings with his spirit consciousness. Before long, a stone steel appeared in front of him. The stone steel was sliced in half by some sort of divine weapon, and the cut was extremely smooth. The remaining half of the stone steel was carved with some runes that were clearly surging with the power of divine abilities. There was a minor divine ability imprinted on the stone tablet. Su Zimo looked at the stone tablet from afar with a calm expression. Suddenly, a mocking look flashed across the depths of his eyes as he walked towards the stone tablet. As he approached the steel, Su Zimo looked at it with rapt attention. The runes on the stone steel twisted and turned. Every crevice of the runes exuded an extremely ferocious aura, as if evil spirits and devils were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, rushing out of the stone steel. Suddenly, Su Zimo felt as if the desert around him had disappeared. He felt as if he had fallen into hell. His surroundings were dark and bloody, and he was surrounded by countless fiends. Su Zimo's expression was perplexed, as if he had fallen into hell and was unable to extricate himself. All of a sudden, a piercingly cold, killing intent burst forth from Su Zimo's body. "Umph!" Su Zimo sneered, and his eyes regained their clarity. He condensed his soul consciousness, and the hellish scene around him disappeared. Su Zimo stomped his foot heavily. Boom! There was a deafening sound. A gigantic pit was created in the desert beneath him with a single stomp. Sand and gravel flew everywhere as a figure appeared, wielding a sword. The blade of the sword pierced Su Zimo's soul coincidentally. A cruel glint flashed through the figure's eyes. In his opinion, his sword was enough to pierce through Su Zimo's soul. Clang. Before that thought was finished, he heard a crisp sound. Not only did his sword not manage to pierce Su Zimo's soul, it even let out the sound of metal clashing. His sword was bent, as if it had stabbed against an impenetrable wall. Its glow dimmed and it almost snapped. Ah! That person's expression changed and his figure flashed, arriving on the other side of Su Zimo. He narrowed his eyes and sized up Su Zimo without saying anything. Su Zimo's gaze shifted and landed on that person. It was a skinny cultivator who was less than 10 feet tall, like a dwarf. Early-stage Mahayana. The cultivators in the ancient battlefield were Mahayana patriarchs with the lowest cultivation realms. Why do you want to kill me when there's no feud between us? Su Zimo asked coldly. Heh! The skinny cultivator sneered. How can you still be so naive after cultivating to the Mahayana realm? There's no reason for all the fighting and killing in the cultivation world. In reality, there was indeed a lesser divine power nurtured on the dilapidated stone steel. However, the skinny cultivator did not leave after cultivating the lesser divine power. Instead, he guarded the dilapidated stone steel and waited for the other patriarchs to arrive. If he did not feel confident, he would remain silent and not attack. If he encountered a seemingly harmless early-stage Mahayana like Su Zimo, he would launch a sneak attack and kill the other party. Through that method, the skinny patriarch managed to succeed a few times. He even obtained a few lesser divine powers from other patriarchs that died. Unfortunately, his opponent today was Su Zimo. The moment he caught sight of the stone steel, Su Zimo's powerful spirit perception sensed danger. Young man, hand over the Dharma treasure on your feet. If you have any divine powers, hand them over as well and I can spare your life. The skinny patriarch said coldly. In his opinion, Su Zimo must be wearing a Dharma treasure similar to a boot that was impenetrable and could even defend against his sword. Su Zimo smiled and asked, "You don't recognize me? I don't care who you are." The skinny patriarch sneered, "I've killed more than 10 newbies who have just entered the Mahayana realm like you." "Is that so?" Su Zimo nodded and said indifferently, "You'll pay with your life today then." Before he finished his sentence, Su Zimo's body flashed and his blood chi surged, bursting forth with rays of light. He reached out and grabbed the head of the skinny patriarch. Pissed. The skinny patriarch's expression changed. The power and aura released by Su Zimo's attack was way too strong. He felt as though a calamity was upon him and was alarmed. Without time to think, the skinny patriarch wielded the sword in his hand and channeled his blood chi at the same time, stabbing towards Su Zimo's palm. Clang. Another crisp sound echoed when the sword stabbed into Su Zimo's palm. Ordinary Dharma treasures could not injure the true body of a grade 8 Qinglian. Su Zimo's expression was cold and his gaze was indifferent. He channeled strength in his palm and grabbed the sword, shaking it forcefully. Crack, crack. A series of cracks appeared on the sword. A tremendous power surged into the skinny patriarch's body. The skinny patriarch shuddered as though he was struck by lightning. His palm tore and fresh blood dripped as he retreated continuously. Su Zimo chased after him like a shadow. Hell Dao! The skinny patriarch hollered and released a lesser divine power. The Hell Dao was also the lesser divine power on the stone steel. There were many lesser divine powers and the Hell Dao was one of the strongest. Su Zimo smiled gently and extended his palm slowly. In his palm was a green lotus. End of this chapter. Chapter 1664. Emperor Family 1/1. This thin and small old ancestor released the Hell Dao, and the surrounding scenery instantly changed. Countless ghostly figures appeared, and it was eerie and terrifying. Blood energy pervaded the air, and it was as dark as night. The Purgatory Dao was considered the most ferocious mystique among the 3 great evil Dao. The Beast Dao could turn humans into beasts. The Hungry Ghost Realm could throw living beings into the Hungry Ghost Realm, where they would be eaten by countless hungry ghosts and suffer all kinds of torture. Once they fell into the Hell Dao, they would never see the light of day again. This was an endless abyss that no one could escape from. But the moment the green lotus bloomed in Su Zimo's palm, all the scenes in hell collapsed. The entire hell was riddled with holes by the multicolored light emitted by good fortune Qinglian. The skinny patriarch's expression changed drastically. Only now did he realize who he had met. Araki Takashi. You're Araki Takashi, the skinny old man exclaimed. Although he was indifferent towards the matters of Tianhuang mainland, the commotion caused at the meet of the thousand races was way too great that even the eternal human emperor descended personally. Moreover, the human emperor had issued a decree personally to Araki Takashi, and the whole world knew about it. Even though he spent most of his time in seclusion in the ancient battlefield, he knew about this as well. Fortune Qinglian was a treasure of heaven and earth. This was one of the biggest characteristics of Araki Takashi. It was said that Araki Takashi went on a killing spree at the convention of the myriad races and even killed some Mahayana patriarchs. The skinny patriarch did not dare to fight him and turned to flee. The skinny old ancestor's body flickered as he used his dermic powers. He was so fast that he left behind a series of afterimages as he dashed into the distance. Heavenly Foot Connection. It was another minor divine ability. This was one of the 6 Buddhist magical powers. Moreover, if this small divine ability was cultivated to the extreme, it could reach the level of a great divine ability. It was one of the most famous escape techniques in Buddhism. A pair of wings appeared on Su Zimo's back, and bolts of lightning appeared all over his body. At the same time, he released the soaring golden light technique, and his speed rose to the limit. Ethereal wings, wind and thunder escape, and earth-piercing golden light. 3 great escape techniques were activated at the same time. Among the 3 great escape techniques, there was also an extremely powerful divine power. After Su Zimo stepped into the Mahayana realm, the earthwarp golden light had completely transformed into a lesser divine art. The golden lightning flashed and chased after the skinny patriarch. The distance between the two rapidly shortened. The skinny old man turned around and was shocked. In less than a dozen breaths, Su Zimo had already caught up to them. Su Zimo flicked his finger gently and a white sword beam burst forth. It descended instantly and pierced through the skinny patriarch's body. Heavenly slaying sword chi descended. Blood light emerged. Piercingly cold sword energy exploded from the skinny ancestor's body, instantly turning him into a bloody mist. Seeing that the situation was not good, the skinny patriarch had already left his body and fled before the slaying heaven sword chi arrived. Condense. As the skinny old man's essence spirit escaped, he used the blood droplet rebirth technique in an attempt to reconstruct his body. Strangle. Right then, Su Zimo's voice sounded with an unusually cold tone. Within the blood mist formed by the skinny old man's body, the slaying heaven sword chi burst forth with an endless sharpness and destroyed the life force of the blood mist. The skinny old man's body was completely destroyed by the slaying heaven sword chi, and there was not a single drop of life force left. The prerequisite for blood droplet rebirth was to possess a single drop of blood. But now, the skinny old man was left with a panicked essence spirit. A thunderbolt descended and struck the skinny old man's essence spirit. Although it did not kill the skinny old man directly, the latter's essence spirit was severely injured. With that delay, Su Zimo's figure descended and he extended his palm to restrain the skinny old man's essence spirit. Without hesitation, he released a soul-searching art. A gigantic ball of light appeared in Su Zimo's palm. Black threads pierced through the skinny old man's essence spirit and extracted his memories continuously. Closing his eyes, Su Zimo searched through the most useful parts of the skinny old man's memories. A moment later, the skinny old man's essence spirit withered completely and dimmed. As for Su Zimo, he gained quite a bit from the soul-searching art as well. The skinny old man had indeed killed many people here with the help of the dilapidated stone steel that was present just now and obtained 6 lesser divine powers as well. He had killed a monk from the Xiankong temple to obtain the heavenly foot connection. Right now, Su Zimo had memorized all 6 lesser divine powers and was prepared to find a secluded place to comprehend them in seclusion. After arriving in the ancient battlefield, all the Mahayana patriarchs spent most of their time comprehending divine powers. It was no exception for Su Zimo as well. Su Zimo returned to the dilapidated stone stele and imprinted all the words on it in his mind. Gradually, his figure sank into the desert and disappeared, beginning a long period of seclusion cultivation. Not long after Su Zimo's figure disappeared, a person suddenly appeared in the void not far away. He did not know when this person arrived or how long he had been here for him to be able to hide from Su Zimo's senses. It was a man in plain robes. His long hair fluttered and covered most of his face. There seemed to be a streak of blood on his glabella. Monk Daming. Monk Daming had entered the ancient battlefield earlier than Su Zimo. He looked in the direction where Su Zimo had disappeared in and was silent for a moment. His gaze landed on the dilapidated stone stele and imprinted the runes on it in his mind as well. Monk Daming knew that Su Zimo possessed an extremely sharp spirit perception that was unpredictable, and he did not dare to get too close. Far away, he looked at the stone stele and comprehended it for a long time before heaving a sigh of relief. "Araki Takashi, you finally caught up to me. I'll be waiting for you up ahead," Monk Daming murmured internally and turned to leave. At the same time, in a relatively well-preserved palace in the ancient battlefield, a middle-aged man sat in the middle. He was high and mighty with his eyes closed, exuding a dignified and domineering aura that looked down on all life. This was a true emperor. Right then, 4 Mahayana patriarchs entered from outside. They wore similar robes and were from Chaos Essence sect. 2 of them were at mid-stage, 1 was at late stage, and the last was at perfected Mahayana. The perfected Mahayana patriarch was Di-Yun, and he was ranked 33rd on the Divine Powers ranking. "Greetings, Emperor Di-Yu." The 4 patriarchs of Chaos Essence sect entered the palace and greeted the middle-aged man high above with reverence in their eyes. They knelt down one after another and greeted loudly. The D clan was a major clan in the cultivation world. Although the D clan could not compare to the 3 aristocratic families in terms of strength and numbers, they had patriarchs and emperors watching over them. The D clan was the oldest family with a legacy dating back to the ancient times. Legend has it that the ancestor of the D clan was the first person to establish an empire in Tianhuang mainland. His descendants had an incomparably noble bloodline and were protected by the heavens. The D clan had a legacy of countless generations and would give birth to a peerless monster incarnate almost every single generation. For example, in this generation, there was a monster incarnate like Di-In. However, it was a pity that he was killed by Su Zimo and died prematurely. Bookseller's website. Chapter 1665. Di-Yu was the middle-aged man in the main hall. He was also the only emperor of this branch of the D family. Although Di-Yun was a Mahayana patriarch as well, he was merely a junior in front of Di-Yu. There were way too many legends about Di-Yu in the D family. Back then, Di-Yu was the strongest paragon and was almost invincible. He attained Jin Dan at 16, Nascent Soul at 20, Void Reversion at 40, and Dharma Characteristic at 100. Such a frightening cultivation speed was rarely seen since ancient times. In the records of the D family, there were more than 10,000 battles of various sizes that Di-Yu had. The most recent battle was 10,000 years ago. At that time, Di-Yu had yet to be conferred as an emperor. However, he descended upon the north region with his Mahayana cultivation and suppressed an ancestral dragon in a domineering manner. That battle caused a gigantic crack to appear on the ground of the north region. That crack was the Dragon Burial Valley of the cultivation world later on. Although the 3 patriarchs beside Di-Yun were not from the D family, they were disciples of Chaos Essence sect as well. When they heard the summons of Emperor Di-Yu, they naturally did not dare to delay and rushed over immediately. "I heard that Araki Takashi has entered," Di-Yu said slowly with his eyes still closed. That's indeed the case based on the news from the sect. The patriarch with the Dao name of Leng Yen nodded slightly. However, the ancient battlefield is way too huge. It won't be easy for Araki Takashi to find a secluded place to cultivate in seclusion. Di-yun nodded as well. There's no news of Araki Takashi at the moment. Even if we have to dig 3 feet underground, we must find Araki Takashi, Di-yu said coldly. The mid-stage Mahayana patriarch was a little hesitant. I heard that Araki Takashi has the human emperor's decree and the human emperor's seal. That's equivalent to the arrival of the human emperor personally. I'm afraid it won't be easy to deal with him. What's there to be afraid of? Di-yun sneered. Araki Takashi has only just entered the Mahayana realm and isn't a forbidden dragon phoenix. I'll definitely be able to suppress him with my help. You don't need to worry. Di-yu said slowly, as long as you can find Araki Takashi, I will personally kill him in the ancient battlefield. The hearts of the 4 patriarchs trembled. With the emperor personally dealing with an Earth Stage Great Ascension Stage old ancestor, Araki Takashi would definitely die. Of course, even if he managed to kill Araki Takashi this time, Di-yu's reputation would fall to rock bottom. After all, such a move was too dishonorable. Furthermore, Araki Takashi had inherited the human emperor's position and his reputation was extremely high. Whoever made an enemy of Araki Takashi would be making an enemy of the eternal human emperor and the entire human race. Di-yu continued, all of you, hurry up and gather the patriarchs of the other sects and forces. We're not the only ones who want to take Araki Takashi's life. Di-yun said in a deep voice, I understand. The patriarchs of Heavenly Dipper Sect, Malevolent Earth Sect and Punglai Island must definitely hate Araki Takashi to the core. Patriarch Yuluo and Patriarch Fadewan died in the hands of Araki Takashi's forbidden clone. Di-yu nodded slightly. It's not just the 3 major sections. Sword Sect, Zephyr Thunder Palace, Hidden Death Sect, Poison Sect and Corpse Refinement Cult as well. You guys have to join forces as well. I heard that Araki Takashi did not give the Bane Spirit fruits to those sections. The patriarchs of those sects must definitely bear a grudge against Araki Takashi as well. I don't believe that we can't find an Araki Takashi by mobilizing half of the Mahayana patriarchs in the ancient battlefield. After pausing for a moment, Di-yu continued, we have to find him as soon as possible. If we wait for Monk Kong Yun and the others to recover from their injuries, it'll be much more difficult to kill that lad. Understood. Di-yu nodded. You guys can leave, Di-yu waved it off. The 4 of them cupped their fists and left. The reason why Di-yu wanted to kill Araki Takashi was not just because of some grudge within the clan. At their cultivation realm, they would not be bothered by the death of a descendant who was countless generations apart. What truly tempted them were the many powerful treasures and peerless divine powers. The human emperor's seal was not only an emperor weapon personally refined by the human emperor. It was said that there was a peerless divine power of the ancient human emperor inscribed on the human emperor's seal, 3 heads and 6 arms. If he could obtain the human emperor's seal, he would have a chance to cultivate 3 heads and 6 arms and his combat strength would increase exponentially. That was one of the strongest peerless divine powers of the ancient human emperor back then. Su Zimo stayed in Tianhuang mainland for a decade and dominated the 4 regions, 3 oceans and 1 continent, causing quite a stir. However, Di-yu did not make a move. It was not that he did not want to, but he had reservations. Su Zimo was not a threat to him. However, he had a clone that was the Forbidden Dragon Phoenix. Furthermore, the Forbidden Dragon Phoenix was backed by a massive being like the dragons and a peerless expert like Emperor Qianlong. Di-yu was worried that he would fall into Su Zimo's trap and meet a terrifying existence like Emperor Qianlong if he were to make a move to kill Su Zimo. That was the reason why he would only dare to lay his hands on Su Zimo after Su Zimo entered the ancient battlefield. Here he had no reservations. Time flew by in the blink of an eye. 100 years had passed since Su Zimo entered the ancient battlefield. In the past 100 years, Tianhuang mainland had undergone an earth-shattering change. After the meeting of the 1,000 races, the territories of the primordial 8 races expanded. Countless humans migrated away from the territories of the primordial 8 races. The humans and the primordial 8 races restrained one another. Although there were occasional frictions, there were no major battles. The passing down of the human emperor caused Araki Takashi's name to spread throughout the world. Wu Dao prospered and more living beings began to cultivate the Wu Dao. Among them, some paragons were born. Under the lead of Night Spirit, the half-martial ancestor powerhouses in the Kunlun ruins left the Kunlun ruins through Fairy Ling Long's secret passageway. In the Kunlun ruins, they would never be able to enter the Mahayana realm. That was because as long as they entered the Mahayana realm, they would attract a divine power storm and die on the spot. They could only break through to the Mahayana realm after returning to Tianhuang mainland. This was an extremely powerful force that could not be ignored. Although there were no patriarchs or emperors in the Kunlun clan, there were many half-martial ancestor powerhouses. If they returned to Tianhuang mainland and broke through to the Mahayana realm with the help of the Bane Spirit Fruit, this force was enough to surpass any super sect. If the Kunlun clan suddenly appeared in Tianhuang mainland, it would be too conspicuous. Under the lead of Night Spirit, the Kunlun clan temporarily settled down in Misty Peak. 100 years passed. Night Spirit had long entered the Mahayana realm. After experiencing the meeting of the 1,000 races, Monkey, Ling Hu and the others broke through one after another and became old demons that dominated a region. In the ancient battlefield, there were almost no changes in the past 100 years. The cultivators here were all Mahayana patriarchs. Every patriarch had a lifespan of 100,000 years. 100 years passed by in the blink of an eye for these patriarchs. On this day, in the middle of a desolate desert, a violent shockwave suddenly spread and countless gravel collapsed, forming a gigantic crater. A figure tore through the air with a tyrannical power of divine powers and released thousands of rays of light. It was like a green Qinglian that swayed in the desert. Each time it swayed, the massive ancient battlefield would tremble along with it. Su Zimo had broken out of seclusion. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version. Chapter 1666. He could only enter the mid-stage Mahayana realm after comprehending more than 10 lesser divine powers. Comprehending 10 lesser divine powers in 100 years was an extremely shocking speed. On the one hand, it was because Su Zimo was equivalent to a humanoid creation Qinglian that could seize the creation of heaven and earth. The speed at which he comprehended divine powers far surpassed most cultivators. On the other hand, Su Zimo had personally witnessed the earth-shattering battle between the emperors at the meeting of the 1,000 races. A battle of that level was a rare and precious experience for him. Most importantly, the eternal human emperor had once used his Qinglian true body to fight against the emperors of the ferocious races such as the Shenhuang of heaven. At that time, in the eyes of many cultivators, it seemed as though peerless divine powers had been released throughout the battle. However, Su Zimo's black-haired essence spirit could sense it clearly in his consciousness. During the battle, the eternal human emperor had also used many lesser and greater divine powers to assist. The reason why he broke out of seclusion this time round was because Su Zimo had encountered a bottleneck. If he wanted to break through to late-stage Mahayana realm, he had to comprehend a greater divine power. Su Zimo's Qinglian true body had condensed the dermic daos of the immortal, Buddhist and fiend sects and cultivated 3 lesser divine powers. There were many greater divine powers of the immortal, Buddhist and fiend sects, and he had the chance to comprehend them all. However, it was way too difficult to comprehend a greater divine power unless there was an extreme method. Su Zimo looked at the divine powers ranking that floated in the firmaments in deep thought. Up till now, he was not prepared to fight for the divine powers ranking. Given his current combat strength, he could definitely fight for a spot on the divine powers ranking if he used all his trump cards. However, it was extremely difficult for him to get into the top 6 of the divine powers ranking. Su Zimo intended to comprehend a greater divine power and enter late-stage Mahayana realm before fighting for the divine powers ranking. Araki Takashi, so you're here. Right then, a cold voice sounded from not far away. A figure slowly appeared in the void and sneered at Su Zimo. The patriarch's face was yellowish and he was as thin as a bamboo pole. His clothes were colorful and gave off a faint stench. Su Zimo's expression remained the same. He had caused quite a commotion by stepping into the Mahayana realm, so it was only natural that other cultivators would be attracted. This old ancestor looked like a sickly person, but in fact his entire body was crawling with poisonous creatures. If one were to pay close attention to the colorful clothes, they would notice that these clothes were wriggling slightly. They were all made up of various poisons. The Mahayana patriarch of poison sect. Su Zimo casually glanced at this person and said faintly, "You are in the early Dashang stage, are you looking for death?" The patriarch of poison sect had stayed in the ancient battlefield for more than 10,000 years, but he had only comprehended a few lesser divine powers and was only at the early stage Mahayana realm. But even if it was an ancestor in the middle stage of the Mahayana realm, he was not willing to fight with him. A mid-stage Mahayana patriarch would naturally be able to suppress the poison sect's patriarch in terms of strength. However, poison sect's patriarch was covered in poisonous insects. If he were to be bitten by them, even if he managed to survive, he would most likely lose half his life. Most Mahayana patriarchs would choose to avoid the poison sect's patriarch unless there was an irresolvable conflict. Araki Takashi, others might be afraid of you, but I, Luo-in, am not. The poison sect's patriarch known as Luo-in said coldly, "Furthermore, I don't mind telling you that there are countless Mahayana patriarchs in the ancient battlefield who are frantically searching for your whereabouts. You'll definitely die if they find you. Is that so?" Suddenly, Araki Takashi raised his leg and stomped on the ground fiercely. Suddenly, a puddle of blood burst out from the desert beneath his feet with an incomparably foul stench. Before a poisonous insect could reveal itself, it was crushed by his stomp. Su Zimo's gaze swept towards Patriarch Luo-in as he said coldly, "How dare you attack me? You must have a death wish." In a flash, Su Zimo arrived in front of Patriarch Luo-in in the blink of an eye. At an extremely fast speed, he extended his finger and pierced it towards the latter's glabella. Patriarch Luo-yin's gaze shone with malice as he shuddered and released streaks of colorful lights that shot towards Su Zimo. He had nurtured those poisonous insects for tens of thousands of years. Even late-stage and perfected Mahayana patriarchs would find it difficult to survive the bites of so many poisonous insects. However, Su Zimo's gaze was like lightning and he did not dodge or dodge. He ignored the incoming poisonous insects and continued piercing with his finger. His finger changed at the last moment and formed a sword art with 2 fingers, releasing a heaven-slaying sword chi. The change was so fast that Patriarch Luo-in could not react to it at all. The moment the heaven-slaying sword chi pierced through Patriarch Luo-yin's glabella, the poisonous insects landed on Su Zimo's body and started biting wildly. "Araki Takashi, you're so ruthless." Patriarch Luo-yin's eyes dimmed gradually. He had not expected that Su Zimo would not dodge his poisonous bug at all and penetrate his consciousness with a single finger, causing his essence spirit to not be able to escape. "It doesn't matter even if I die." Patriarch Luo-yin's final remnant consciousness said fiercely, "It won't be long before you die with me. I'm going to watch you die from the poison here." At that moment, Su Zimo's body was filled with poisonous insects and there was almost no part of his body that was exposed. Anyone who saw that would feel their scalps tingle. Who could survive being surrounded by so many poisonous insects? "Seems like you don't know what creation Qinglian is at all." Right then, Su Zimo's voice sounded. It was calm and emotionless. "All of you get lost." Suddenly, Su Zimo hollered and channeled his blood chi. Suddenly, rays of green light burst forth from his body and shot into the surroundings, emitting an endless brilliance. Against the scourge of the green light, the poisonous insects squeaked miserably and fell off one after another, struggling on the ground in extreme pain. The creation Qinglian was an utmost treasure of the world that was flawless and impenetrable to poison. The green light dyed the heavens and illuminated the mountains and rivers in a supreme manner. It was the best counter against filthy poisonous insects. Even an ordinary lotus flower could grow untainted, let alone the creation Qinglian. All the esteemed monks of the Buddhist monasteries with the highest cultivation, Bodhi and Buddhas sat on lotus platforms of all sorts. It was clear how mysterious the lotus flower was. Patriarch Luo-yin's Tao was destroyed due to a single misperception. Su Zimo did not even want to rummage through Patriarch Luo Yin's storage bag and released a ball of Dao fire, tossing it onto Patriarch Luo Yin's body. When the Dao fire descended, poisonous insects flew out from Patriarch Luo Yin's body one after another, burning with flames and struggling endlessly. However, before long, they were burned to ashes by the merciless Dao fire. Roar! Right then, a ferocious roar sounded from afar, as though a supreme fiend had been born and was approaching Su Zimo rapidly. On the other side, several powerful auras burst forth and were rushing towards this place at high speed. Su Zimo had already cultivated the heavenly eye, heavenly ear and heavenly foot techniques of the Buddhist monasteries. He had already sensed those experts from afar. More and more patriarchs were heading in his direction. At that moment, Su Zimo could rely on the three mystic powers of the Buddhist monasteries to find a gap and escape. However, his lips curled slightly and he did not leave. Instead, he stood on the spot motionlessly, waiting for the experts that were rushing over. End of this chapter. Chapter 1667. Sword Chi Prison, 1/1. In the west, a tall and burly figure was leaping and running. With every leap, he could cross dozens of feet. When they landed, the ground would tremble. In the blink of an eye, the tall figure had already arrived in front of them. This figure was covered in long golden hair and emitted the stench of rotting corpses. Its 10 long and slender fingernails were slightly curved, as if they were 10 scimitars shining with a cold light. These were the battle corpses of the corpse refinement cult. A corpse refinement cult patriarch was hidden nearby and did not reveal himself. However, he was controlling a battle corpse in the dark to arrive before Su Zimo. This battle corpse was clearly a Mahayana patriarch when it was alive and had been tempered with many secret techniques of the corpse refinement cult to create such a monster. Roar! Facing Su Zimo, this battle corpse was naturally fearless. It let out a roar, and a sticky yellow liquid flowed from the corner of its mouth. It was a nauseating sight. On the other side, the two Mahayana patriarchs of Heavenly Dipper sect arrived. The one on the left had a leaf-shaped black birthmark on his face. His Taoist name was Ba Yu, and he was at the late stage of the Mahayana realm. The one on the right had a horse-like face and a cold gaze. His Taoist name was Breaking Brilliance, and he was at the middle stage of the Mahayana realm. These two patriarchs had even accompanied Patriarch Yu Luo and the others to Enigma Palace. From the west, 3 cultivators in black Taoist robes arrived together with a malevolent aura. It was the Patriarch of Malevolent Earth sect. One was in the middle stage of Mahayana realm, and 2 were in the late stage of Mahayana realm. The sound of waves came from the east. Countless dermic powers condensed, and a Mahayana realm patriarch actually rode the wind and broke through the waves. He held a silver trident in his hand, and his body was shrouded in water vapor. Patriarch Fei Lang of Penglai Island was at peak Mahayana realm. The south. 2 patriarchs of the Hunyuan sect sped over. One of them was Di Yun, a perfected Mahayana realm cultivator ranked 33rd on the Divine Arts ranking. The other was Ancestor Ling Yen of the Hunyuan sect, the late Deshang stage. The 2 of them rushed over as soon as they received the news. The other patriarchs of the Primordial Chaos sect were still on their way. More Mahayana ancestral patriarchs rushed over. Su Zimo's ears twitched. He could hear the fluttering of clothes coming from all directions. The appearance of Araki Takashi had alarmed many Mahayana realm ancestors. As time passed, there would be more and more Mahayana realm patriarchs who were closest to this place. As time passed, more Mahayana realm patriarchs would arrive. What are you all planning to do with such a grand lineup? Su Zimo's expression was calm as he surveyed his surroundings and asked indifferently. Araki Takashi. Old Ancestor Ba Yu coldly said, "Your time of death has come." A patriarch of Malevolent Earth sect said coldly, "Araki Takashi, you've been in the limelight in Enigma Palace and even killed Patriarch Fadewan of our sect. Today, I'll have you pay with your life." Old Ancestor Fadewan was killed by the Dragon Phoenix True Body. If they really faced the Dragon Phoenix True Body, these old ancestors really wouldn't dare to say anything. But the real body of Qinglian in front of them was only in the middle Dashang stage, and only comprehended 10 small magical powers. There was not much fear in everyone's heart. Furthermore, they had the advantage in numbers. Among these Mahayana realm patriarchs, there was an expert on the divine powers ranking like Di Yun. It was more than enough to suppress a mid-stage Mahayana Araki Takashi. Di Yun glared at Suzimo and said slowly, "Araki Takashi, it's your greatest mistake to have a feud with the D family. Everyone, this is the moment to kill Araki Takashi." Di Yun waved his arm and hollered. Sush, sush. Many Mahayana realm patriarchs attacked one after another. Dharma treasures transformed into divine lights that interweaved in midair, almost forming an inescapable net without any gaps. Many Dharma treasures smashed down toward Suzimo. Good timing. Suzimo burst into laughter and roared into the skies. Channeling his blood chi, the sound of tsunamis echoed from his body as his aura rose rapidly. Sush. Suzimo's figure seemed to have disappeared and was replaced by a creation Qinglian that soared into the skies. Rays of light dyed the skies and illuminated the vast expanse. Many Dharma treasures could not be smashed down when they were washed by the countless rays of green light. All of them froze in midair and swayed slightly, as though they were under immense pressure. None of the Dharma treasures landed on the creation Qinglian. After a moment of stalemate, the light emitted by the Dharma treasures flickered and their trembling became more obvious. Disperse! Suzimo's voice sounded with a soft shout. The creation Qinglian swayed gently and the entire void seemed to materialize, creating ripples that resembled water that struck the many Dharma treasures. Bang, bang, bang. Some powerful Dharma treasures were sent flying by the ripples of the void. Some early-stage Mahayana Dharma treasures were smashed into dust by the ripples of the void and dispersed with the wind. Gigantic cracks appeared on the Dharma treasures of some mid-stage Mahayana patriarchs as well. They dimmed and fell from midair, turning into scrap metal. Only the Dharma treasures of late-stage Mahayana patriarchs that had undergone the tempering of divine powers could remain unscathed against the impact of the creation Qinglian. Some Mahayana patriarchs shuddered and spat out blood. Many of those Dharma treasures were the destiny Dharma treasures of those Mahayana patriarchs. The essence spirits of those Mahayana patriarchs were also affected when their destiny Dharma treasures were severely damaged. Suzimo's figure appeared once more. With a flash, he vanished from the spot and arrived before the 3 malevolent Earth sect patriarchs. With a flip of his palm, he smashed down. The Dharma treasure of the malevolent Earth sect patriarch shattered, and he spat out blood. Before he could react, he was killed by Suzimo with a single slap. His essence spirit was still in his consciousness when it was shattered by Suzimo's strength. Seeing that the situation was not good, the other 2 malevolent Earth sect patriarchs turned to flee, wanting to distance themselves from Suzimo. Trying to escape? Suzimo sneered coldly and gathered 2 fingers together. Conjuring a sword art, he slashed gently in the direction of the 2 malevolent Earth sect patriarchs. 1,000 heaven-slaying sword chis burst forth from Suzimo's sword fingers and enveloped the 2 malevolent Earth sect patriarchs instantly, forming a sword chi prison. Initially, the 2 malevolent Earth sect patriarchs could still fight against the heaven-slaying sword chis with the divine powers they cultivated. However, there were 1,000 heaven-slaying sword chis that were sharp and sliced at the 2 malevolent Earth sect patriarchs continuously. In just a few breaths, the bodies of the 2 malevolent Earth sect patriarchs were filled with wounds. Another 3 breaths passed. The bodies of the 2 malevolent Earth sect patriarchs were sliced into pieces and turned into 2 blood mists. A breath later, the 2 blood mists were minced into nothingness by the heaven-slaying sword chis. The essence spirits of the 2 malevolent Earth sect patriarchs had died long ago as well. The 2 malevolent Earth sect patriarchs were ground to death by 1,000 heaven-slaying sword chis. You think you can kill me with just the 2 of you? Suzimo looked around with a scorching gaze. His body shone with a green glow and his aura was torrential like a god. No one dared to look him in the eye. Shook House website. Chapter 1668. Grand Rain Summoning Technique. Patriarch Phylong of Pune Island waved the trident in his hands and pointed it at Su Zimo from afar, releasing a great divine power. Bang! Rumble! Thunder rumbled. In the blink of an eye, dark clouds gathered above Su Zimo's head. The next moment, rain poured down. This was no ordinary rainwater. Every single drop of rainwater was condensed by an extremely powerful divine power. They were like needles and swords that could pierce through a cultivator's body with ease. Grand Wind Summoning Technique. Chaos Essence Sextiun withdrew a horsetail whisk from his storage bag and waved it at Su Zimo, creating a strong gust of wind that howled over. This was an astral wind from the 9 heavens that could penetrate the organs and even destroy a cultivator's essence spirit. Cultivators with insufficient cultivation realms would be blown apart by the Grand Wind Summoning Technique, leaving behind only a corpse. Roar! On the other side, the golden-furred battle corpse roared with a menacing expression. It bared its fangs and charged towards Su Zimo with a ferocious glint in its eyes. The other Mahayana patriarchs attacked one after another as well. Instantly, countless divine powers tore through the air, causing sand and pebbles to fly around in a massive manner. Su Zimo had a fearless expression as the blood chi in his body surged, letting out the sound of a tsunami. A green glow burst forth and defended against the pouring rain. Drip, 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 drip. The rainwater fell continuously as though it was endless. Before long, it pierced through the glow around Qinglian's true body and landed on Qinglian's true body. Patriarch Phylong's eyes lit up. Without the protection of the green glow, his divine power was enough to kill Su Zimo. Clang, clang, clang. However, not only did the rainwater not cause any bloodstains on Qinglian's true body, it shattered and let out a crisp sound of jade colliding. Although the Great Wind Summoning Technique blew away the green light around Su Zimo, it couldn't hurt Qinglian's real body at all. Su Zimo's figure stood tall in the raging wind, not moving at all. His eyes were terrifyingly bright, and his entire body was suffused with a cold, killing intent. What? Forefather Fadewan widened his eyes and his pupils constricted. His great power couldn't hurt Su Zimo's Qinglian body. With a flash of golden lightning, Su Zimo's figure disappeared from where he stood. In the next moment, Su Zimo arrived before Old Ancestor Fadewan. Old Ancestor Fadewan reacted extremely quickly. He gathered a huge wave around him and protected himself completely. He was trying to distance himself from Lin Fan. Kill! Su Zimo bellowed and unleashed his sound domain's secret technique. While this monstrous wave was instantly dispersed by Su Zimo's sound domain's secret technique. Old Ancestor Phylong's figure was completely revealed. His eyes were bloodshot, and 2 streaks of scarlet blood flowed out of his ears. He had suffered an intense impact. Kill! Old Ancestor Phylong bellowed as well. He waved the silver trident with both hands and stabbed it towards Su Zimo, who was in front of him. The gigantic body of the trident was filled with an extremely powerful power of divine power. Su Zimo did not dodge. He reached out with his fair palm and grabbed the tip of the trident. No matter how Old Ancestor Phylong circulated his blood chi and divine power, the trident did not budge in Su Zimo's palm at all. Die! Su Zimo let out a soft roar and pushed the tip of the trident forward with all his might. Exclamation point! The trident slashed across Old Ancestor Phylong's palm and pierced his chest, causing blood to spurt out. The tremendous force caused Old Ancestor Phylong's chest to explode. The difference in strength was way too great. With a flick of his finger, Su Zimo released a heaven-slaying sword chi that tore through the air. Old Ancestor Phylong's essence spirit had just escaped, and before it could reconstruct its body, it was slashed by the heaven-slaying sword chi and died. A perfected Mahayana patriarch was killed by Qinglian's true body on the spot. This scene made all the Mahayana realm ancestors present secretly shocked. Although Old Ancestor Phylong was not an expert on the divine powers ranking, he was a perfected Mahayana patriarch and had comprehended more than 10 great divine powers. Yet, he could not defend against Su Zimo's attack. Su Zimo's slight delay in killing old ancestor Feilong allowed many lesser and greater divine powers to descend. Qinglian's true body had nowhere to hide. Boom, boom, boom. Su Zimo's Qinglian true body could not stand in midair at all against the attacks of so many divine powers and was drowned instantly, smashing heavily onto the ground. Gravel flew everywhere and a human-shaped pit appeared on the ground. Is he dead? I don't think so. I didn't see Araki Takashi's essence spirit escaping. It's fine. Even if he's not dead, Araki Takashi will definitely be severely injured. That's right. If we can't kill Araki Takashi with this wave of attacks, we can just unleash another round of attacks at most. If 2 rounds aren't enough, we'll go for 10 rounds. Even if we drag it out, we'll be able to exhaust Araki Takashi to death. The Grand Ascension Stage patriarchs discussed among themselves as they made their way toward the crater. Right then, a mocking laughter sounded from the pit. Su Zimo stood up slowly from the pit. Although his green robes were tattered and his body was riddled with injuries, his eyes were still bright and frightening. You're still laughing? Patriarch Nether Tyrant of Heavenly Dipper sect grit his teeth. We'll make sure you won't even be able to cry later on. Surveying his surroundings, Su Zimo shook his head slightly and mocked, "You guys are still too weak." Under the watchful eyes of the Mahayana patriarchs, the injuries on Su Zimo's body healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, those injuries were healed. Su Zimo had recovered to his original state. The expressions of the Mahayana patriarchs changed slightly. The bloodline of the Mahayana patriarchs had been tempered by divine powers and their self-healing abilities were extremely strong. However, the injuries caused by divine powers and Dharma treasures would require a long time to heal due to the residual power of divine powers. Many patriarchs had never seen someone like Su Zimo before. Everyone, Araki Takashi must be stalling for time. Di Yun reminded hurriedly and attacked right away, conjuring yet another great divine power. At the same time, he waved his horsetail whisk and whipped it fiercely toward Su Zimo. Bang, bang, bang. The Mahayana patriarchs snapped back to their senses and channeled their essence spirits once more to release lesser and greater divine powers. Many divine powers covered the skies and there was no way to avoid them. Once again, Su Zimo's body was engulfed by the divine powers. The patriarchs could clearly see that all the divine powers landed on Su Zimo's body and they could even see blood splattering. A moment later, the power of the divine powers dissipated and the patriarchs looked over. In the desert, Su Zimo crawled up from the ground slowly and stretched his neck. His body was covered with at least 100 wounds. However, those wounds were filled with a green glow and healed rapidly. In the blink of an eye, Qinglian's true body had recovered to its original state. Pissed, the Mahayana patriarchs gasped. This kind of self-healing ability, such a powerful vitality, had already exceeded their understanding. End of this chapter. Chapter 1669. After creation, Qinglian grew to grade 8. Even many great mystiques were unable to shake its foundation. Even if it suffered some injuries, the powerful vitality within creation Qinglian would circulate on its own and the injuries would be healed in the blink of an eye. The surrounding Mahayana patriarchs were secretly shocked. If this continued, they would be exhausted to death before Su Zimo could do anything. Didn't you guys want to snatch the human emperor's seal? Su Zimo looked around and patted his storage bag, saying slowly, "Now, I'll let you guys have a taste of the power of the human emperor's seal." In Su Zimo's palm was a large seal. It was pitch black, cold, angular and filled with an ancient and powerful imperial might. Boom! Su Zimo tossed his palm and the human emperor's seal descended from the sky, smashing towards Patriarch Dark Tyrant of Heavenly Dipper sect with a terrifying momentum. Patriarch Dark Tyrant's expression changed drastically. The human emperor's seal was a treasure of Tianhuang region and even the emperors of the ferocious races would be smashed into a bloody mist. Although Su Zimo was at early stage Mahayana realm, he could not unleash the full power of the human emperor's seal. Patriarch Dark Tyrant did not dare to fight head-on and turned to flee. But even though he was fast, the human emperor's seal descended even faster. A huge shadow shrouded over. Before the human emperor's seal completely descended, a huge pressure had already pressed down. Patriarch Dark Tyrant's speed was greatly reduced as though he had fallen into a swamp. Patriarch Dark Tyrant's face was pale. Seeing that he could not escape the range of the human emperor's seal, he swung the long saber in his hand and slashed down at the seal. Boom! The human emperor's seal smashed down and the earth shook. Patriarch Dark Tyrant was smashed down by the human emperor's seal and turned into a bloody pulp, dead. Seeing this, Di Yun's expression changed and revealed a trace of fear. However, he was not afraid, because as long as he dragged on a little longer, the emperors of the Di bloodline would arrive. At that time, even if Su Zimo had the human emperor's seal, he would be mercilessly suppressed by the emperors. More and more Mahayana patriarchs gathered here. Among them were Mahayana patriarchs from Snowdrift Valley, Hegemon Palace, and Dipankara Temple. Fellow cultivator Araki Takashi, don't panic. I'm here to help you. An ancestor of Hegemon Palace walked toward Su Zimo with a giant spear in his hand. Count me in. A Snowdrift Valley's old ancestor stepped forward as well. After the meeting of the Thousand Races, not all the super sects of Tianhuang mainland were enemies with Su Zimo. For instance, Snowdrift Valley, Hegemon Palace, and the 6 Buddhist monasteries were extremely respectful towards Araki Takashi. It was not only because of the succession of the one human emperor, but also because Araki Takashi had once stood up and led the human race to fight against the various ferocious races during the convention of the myriad races. It was also because Araki Takashi had once selflessly shared the fiend spirit fruit with them. In the hearts of many Grand Ascension stage grand ancestors, Araki Takashi was the human emperor of this generation. Thank you for your kind intentions, fellow Taoists. You don't have to fight, just watch from the sidelines. Su Zimo suddenly raised his voice. The Grand Ascension patriarchs of Hegemon Palace, Snowdrift Valley, and the others paused in their tracks hesitantly. They did not understand why Su Zimo did not allow them to interfere. Boom! It was yet another deafening sound. It was Su Zimo controlling the human emperor's seal to crush yet another Grand Ascension patriarch to death. Boom! 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 Di Yun and the other Grand Ascension patriarchs attacked one after another, releasing another wave of attacks towards Su Zimo. However, they could not injure the foundation of Qinglian's true body. On the contrary, the human emperor's seal rampaged through the crowd under Su Zimo's control. Anyone who was struck by the human emperor's seal would be smashed into a blood mist right away. If their essence spirits were slightly slower, they would die on the spot. Even if they were grazed by the human emperor's seal, their tendons and bones would definitely be fractured. Although Di Yun was an expert ranked 33 on the Divine Powers ranking, he could not go against the human emperor's seal head-on and could only rely on the horsetail whisk in his hands to neutralize the power of the human emperor's seal as much as possible. Wielding the human emperor's seal, Su Zimo charged towards Di Yun in huge strides. Many Grand Ascension patriarchs dodged in fear of the power of the human emperor's seal, not daring to advance. The two of them were in a standoff in the chaotic battlefield. Ranked 33 on the Divine Powers ranking? Su Zimo sneered. Today, I'm going to remove your name from the Divine Powers ranking. Mountain lifting. Di Yun did not dare to be careless and hurriedly channeled his essence spirit to conjure a great divine power. Waving his horsetail whisk, he moved a gigantic mountain from afar and smashed it towards Su Zimo. Shatter! Raising the human emperor's seal, Su Zimo smashed it down on the mountain fiercely. Boom! Sand and rocks flew everywhere. Compared to the gigantic mountain, the human emperor's seal was incomparably tiny. However, it shattered the mountain into countless boulders that rained down. Su Zimo tore through the mist of sand and rocks and charged towards Di Yun. Chasing the moon. Di Yun's expression changed slightly. He did not want to fight Su Zimo head-on and turned to escape at a frightening speed. Mountain lifting and chasing the moon were two great divine powers. The former focused on strength while the latter was a divine power that focused on speed. Rooting. Su Zimo channeled his essence spirit and murmured softly. Every time Diyun's feet landed, thick roots would instantly grow out of the void beneath his feet, wrapping around his ankles. Of course, that was only a lesser divine power and could not restrict Diyun's movements. Diyun channeled his blood qi and could regain his freedom with a slight struggle. However, these roots still affected Diyun quite a bit. Due to the constant interference, Diyun's speed gradually slowed down. However, Su Zimo closed in swiftly with his heavenly feet and said coldly with a murderous aura, "The D family must be tired of living in the ancient battlefield. Since that's the case, I'll grant you your wish." As he said that, Su Zimo tossed the human emperor's seal in his hands and smashed it fiercely towards Diyun. Major protection art. Diyun roared and the power of divine powers emanated from his body, forming an impenetrable barrier around him. Boom! The human emperor's seal smashed down. With a loud crack, the human emperor's seal directly shattered the great protective art, and the remaining force crashed into Diyun's body, shattering his physical body into pieces. Diyun's essence spirit escaped. Die! Su Zimo's eyes shone brightly as he closed two fingers and conjured a sword art, prepared to kill Diyun on the spot. All of a sudden, an extremely terrifying might descended and the entire battlefield fell into silence. All the Mahayana patriarchs looked up in shock. It was the might of an emperor. An emperor had arrived personally. "Emperor Yu, save me!" Diyun yelled hurriedly when he sensed the aura. It was the emperor of the D family, Diyu. "Araki Takashi, prepare to die." Suddenly, a gigantic palm that blanketed the skies descended from the void and grabbed towards Su Zimo. There was no doubt that an emperor was coming personally to suppress an early-stage Mahayana patriarch. The patriarchs of Overlord Palace, Snowdrift Valley, and the other sects suddenly thought of a possibility. Please remember this book's domain name, mobile version. Chapter 1670. "Brother Su, what are you worried about?" Lin Xuanji asked. Now that the storyteller was fine, Lin Xuanji was in a good mood and relaxed completely. "Nothing," Su Zimo replied casually. Lin Xuanji smiled. "Don't worry, after today, Tianhuang mainland will welcome a long period of peace where the 10,000 races will coexist and not interfere with each other. The two emperors, the Underworld Witch Emperor and Golden Crow Fire Emperor, were severely injured by Senior Human Emperor. They'll probably have to recuperate for at least 1,000 years. Even if the two emperors recover after 1,000 years, there's still Senior Astro Dragon Emperor around." Su Zimo nodded. The Astro Dragon Emperor had at least 10,000 years of lifespan left. In other words, the primordial races would have their reservations within the next 10,000 years and would not dare to start a war rashly. However, Su Zimo was worried about something else. "Now that I think about it, it's been 10,000 years since the catastrophe of Great Qian," Su Zimo murmured softly. There were still some powerful existences in Tianhuang mainland that he did not dare to come into contact with. However, those experts did not appear during the Myriad Races convention. The powerful existence that severely injured Long Ran beneath the 1,000-year Blood Sea in Thousand Demon Valley. Long Ran was nearly killed before he could even see what was in the depths of the Blood Sea. There was another person. It was the Saber Emperor, the smoky wave figure. Although that person had saved Su Zimo before, he still felt that there was something strange about the smoky wave figure. What was even stranger was that the powerful existence beneath the 1,000-year Blood Sea in Thousand Demon Valley had saved him once as well. Why was that? Apart from that latent danger, there was also the crack in the firmaments. The human emperor was the one who told Su Zimo about this in private. Su Zimo had no intention of announcing it to the public either. Nobody knew what kind of effects the imperfections of heaven and earth and the chaos of the laws would bring about. If he said it now, it would only cause unnecessary panic. No matter what, he had to let the strength of the human race grow as soon as possible. At that thought, Su Zimo stood up and stood out before the meet came to an end and the various major sects and factions had yet to leave. "Everyone, please hold on," Su Zimo declared loudly. The cultivators of the various major sects and factions turned around one after another and looked at Su Zimo. Su Zimo held a black, crystalline fruit that exuded a rich, malevolent aura. Fiend spirit fruit. Many experts exclaimed as they recognized that fruit immediately. Earlier on, when Su Zimo was attempting his divine power tribulation for the Mahayana realm, he had consumed a malevolent spirit fruit. Their eyes, phi, Senior Desolate Marshal, are you going to auction this evil spirit fruit? The Valley Master of Snowdrift Valley asked respectfully, if it's an auction, I'm willing to offer treasures, cultivation techniques, or secret skills to exchange with Senior Desolate Marshal. Even though Su Zimo was young, he was already a senior to half-martial ancestors. I can use a Dharma treasure to exchange for it. A Heavenly Dipper sect half-martial ancestor interjected hurriedly, I once obtained a Dharma treasure in an ancient ruin. Initially, I wanted to keep it for myself. But today, I can bear the pain and use that Dharma treasure to exchange for this fiend's spirit fruit. At the level of a half-martial ancestor or patriarch, any single item they took out was priceless and most of them had to be bartered. As he said that, the Heavenly Dipper sect half-martial ancestor took out a jade water sword from his storage bag. The sword looked extremely ancient. However, the moment it was taken out, a cold glint shone on it like ripples in water. It was extremely sharp. That was indeed an extraordinary Dharma treasure. I can use a minor divine power to exchange for the fiend's spirit fruit. A malevolent earth sect half-martial ancestor could not hold it in and stood out as well. I once obtained a beast skin with the remnant power of this divine power lingering on it without dissipating. If you obtain that beast skin and comprehend it, you'll definitely be able to comprehend the minor divine power on it. A commotion broke out in the crowd. More half-martial ancestors stood out one after another and took out many treasures, wanting to exchange for the fiend's spirit fruit in Araki Takashi's hands. The fiend's spirit fruit was way too attractive for half-martial ancestors. They would only have the chance to comprehend and use those Dharma treasures and divine powers after advancing to the Mahayana realm. If they failed their tribulations, everything would be over. Su Zimo had an indifferent expression as he pressed down on the void. The voices in the crowd gradually quieted down. Su Zimo looked at Snowdrift Valley's Valley Master and smiled gently before tossing the fiend's spirit fruit in his hands over. The fiend's spirit fruit transformed into a streak of light and arrived before Snowdrift Valley's Valley Master. Senior, Snowdrift Valley's Valley Master caught the fiend's spirit fruit and was momentarily confused as he stammered, Senior, you haven't told me what treasure you need. What if I don't have it? There's no need. Su Zimo waved it off and pointed to Snowdrift Valley's Valley Master's injuries that had yet to heal. Your injuries are worth this fiend's spirit fruit. As the master of a sect, Snowdrift Valley's Valley Master felt as though the softest part of her heart had been struck and her eyes reddened. Just now, Snowdrift Valley's Valley Master led the disciples behind her in a massive battle against the various primordial races and led the charge, narrowly escaping death. Snowdrift Valley's Valley Master's injuries had yet to heal after these few days. Without this fiend's spirit fruit, her chances of transcending the divine power tribulation were extremely slim. The fiend's spirit fruit reignited her hope. In the battle a few days ago, the human race was faced with an extremely dangerous situation. Sword Sect, Zephyr Thunder Palace, Chaos Essence Sect and most other sects stood by idly, not daring to clash head-on with the primordial races. As for Heavenly Dipper Sect, Malevolent Earth Sect and Punglai Island, they had already submitted to the primordial 6 races. Only sects such as Snowdrift Valley and Overlord Palace stood out and joined forces with Monkey, Night Spirit and the others to fight against the primordial 6 races. Snowdrift Valley, Overlord Palace, and the other sects suffered heavy casualties. Even though Su Zimo did not say anything about it, he had witnessed everything. Su Zimo slapped his storage bag and took out dozens of fiend's spirit fruits. Pissed, the crowd sucked in a cold breath. Instantly, Su Zimo attracted countless fervent gazes. Many cultivators were swallowing their saliva. Su Zimo looked at the Overlord Palace Master and the others and said in a deep voice, "As for the half-martial ancestors who survived the battle with the primordial 6 races earlier on, you can come and claim a malevolent spirit fruit from me. There's no need for any treasures." The moment he said that, the crowd erupted. Human Emperor! Human Emperor! The half-martial ancestors of Snowdrift Valley, Overlord Palace, and many other cultivators shouted the name of the Human Emperor. "Senior Araki Takashi, what about us?" The Patriarch of Heavenly Dipper Sect said embarrassedly, "We're willing to exchange Dharma treasures and divine powers for them. Please bestow us some fiend spirit fruits, Senior." "You guys?" Su Zimo looked at the half-martial ancestors of Heavenly Dipper Sect and Malevolent Earth Sect with a cold gaze and said slowly, "Get lost. Please remember the domain name of this book." Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 1671. The half-martial ancestors of Heavenly Dipper Sect and Malevolent Earth Sect had terrible expressions. None of them could remain calm after being berated by Su Zimo in front of everyone. However, none of them dared to retort. The fact that Su Zimo distributed the fiend spirit fruits to Snowdrift Valley's Valley Master and the others unconditionally also caused the cultivators of the sects to feel deep respect for Su Zimo. Just as many cultivators shouted, in their hearts, Su Zimo was the new human emperor. Patriarch Araki Takashi, Sword Sect has never submitted to the primordial 6 races. "I would like to use a treasure to exchange for a fiend spirit fruit," the Patriarch of Sword Sect could not help but say as well. "Patriarch Araki Takashi, the grudge between you and Zephyr Thunder Palace is actually just a feud between juniors. It's no big deal." The Zephyr Thunder Palace's master smiled as well. "I wonder if the half-martial ancestors of Zephyr Thunder Palace will have a chance to obtain the fiend spirit fruit." "Of course." Su Zimo nodded. The Patriarch of Sword Sect, the Zephyr Thunder Palace's master and many other experts were delighted as they said hurriedly, "Patriarch Araki Takashi is magnanimous." "Thank you, Patriarch." Su Zimo said indifferently, "I can give you guys the fiend spirit fruit, but you'll have to serve me from now on. If you disobey, you'll die on the spot." The smiles on the faces of the Patriarch of Sword Sect and the others froze. In the battle just now, none of the super sects such as Sword Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace stood out. If the fiend spirit fruits were given to those people, it would be equivalent to feeding them to the dogs. The Patriarch of Sword Sect and the others had uncertain expressions. In the end, they did not make up their minds and remained silent. The storyteller watched from the side and nodded to himself. If the fiend spirit fruits were distributed, the chances of the half-martial ancestors of Snowdrift Valley and the other factions advancing to the Mahayana realm would increase greatly. With that, the patriarchs of the human race would grow significantly in a short period of time. The overall strength of the human race would experience a huge leap as well. The half-martial ancestors of the human race who consumed the malevolent spirit fruits had all fought bloody battles against the various primordial races and survived. After this baptism, if these half-martial ancestors were able to step into the Mahayana realm, their future would be promising. Most importantly, hot blood flowed through their bodies. If the human race were to encounter any sort of danger, these quasi-martial ancestors would definitely step forward without hesitation. I didn't expect that the 3 super sects, the Heavenly Dipper Sect and Penglai Island, would be the first to submit to the primordial 6 races. In the end, their outcome would be the worst. That's right. Putting aside the fact that our base was raided, we suffered a huge loss in the assembly of the myriad races as well. Quite a number of powerful beings died. Araki Takashi's era is coming. Yes, Araki Takashi has reached the Grand Ascension stage, and with Emperor Renhuang inheriting the throne, it will be very difficult to stop his rise. The meeting came to an end. Although the living beings of the myriad races had retreated, they were still discussing the meeting. In fact, for a long period of time in the future, the convention of the 10,000 races would become the topic of discussion of all living beings in Tianhuang mainland. The territory of the Protoss of the primordial 9 races did not expand at all. Furthermore, the Protoss were not allowed to leave their habitat. If any Protoss stepped foot into Tianhuang mainland, the living beings of the myriad races could kill them together. Although Shenhuang was dead, the foundation of the Protoss could not be underestimated after all these years. Naturally, the human race could not take them head-on. At the same time, the primordial races were worried that the Protoss would fight to the death. That was the reason why they did not kill all of them. The crowd of the myriad races gradually retreated. The primordial races bade farewell one after another as well. The Dragon Phoenix true body followed the Emperor Qianlong and returned to the Dragon Bone Valley to cultivate in seclusion. After that battle, the Dragon Phoenix true body gained a huge comprehension after watching the battle of many top emperors. Enigma Palace was filled with blood and corpses. The ruins left behind by the Battle of the Emperors were filled with devastation as many cultivators of Enigma Palace cleaned up. There were many treasures in the storage bags of those experts as well. Although they could not make up for the losses of Enigma Palace, they had gained quite a bit. Master, think of a way to save Senior Sister. Carefree Demon ran out with a white cat in his arms. Only then did Su Zimo remember Kitsune. He hurriedly took the white cat from Carefree Demon's arms and walked to the old storyteller. Senior, this white cat is my personal disciple. It was affected by the Beast Path's divine power and turned into a white cat. I wonder if you can change it back? The old storyteller shook his head slightly and said, the Beast Path is just a small divine power. I can naturally remove the Beast Path from this white cat's body. However, she has been affected by the Beast Path's divine power for so long that it has affected her greatly. If I forcefully expel the divine power from her body, I can't guarantee that she won't have any problems. Su Zimo's face was filled with worry. The old storyteller changed the topic and said, you don't have to worry. As long as you release a great divine power of the human path, the Beast Path will be perfectly resolved and your disciple will return to her former appearance. Kong Yun, it depends on your methods. The old storyteller looked at the Vajra Temple's emperor beside him and said with a smile. The emperor called Kong, pressed his palms together and softly chanted a Buddhist proclamation. Benefactor Araki Takashi, don't worry. Watch me transform this benefactor back. As he spoke, Kongyun activated his essence spirit and stretched out his finger. A powerful divine power condensed on his fingertip and landed on the white cat in Su Zimo's arms. A mysterious brilliance emanated from the white cat's body, as if it was flowing with light. Under everyone's gazes, the white cat gradually disappeared in the light and was replaced by a beautiful woman. Her jade-like body lay in Su Zimo's arms. It was Kitsune. Su Zimo sized up Kitsune and sensed the situation in her body before letting out a long sigh of relief. Her body was fine. The Beast Path had been perfectly resolved. Master! Kitsune blushed slightly and called out softly. Su Zimo finally reacted and burst into laughter. He hurriedly placed Kitsune down and turned to bow deeply to Monk Kongyun. Thank you, Senior. Kitsune bowed to Monk Kongyun as well and thanked him sincerely. Senior Sister, do you still recognize me? Carefree Yao approached with a grin. When I first saw you, you were still an egg. How can I recognize you after such a huge change? Kitsune smiled and shook her head gently. Su Zimo smiled and said, you guys can leave. Go somewhere else and talk. Bai Mingxue and Carefree bowed and left. On the way back, Carefree kept chattering around Bai Mingxue, making a lot of noise. Zimo, I'm going to enter the human emperor's palace and will be leaving for now. The old storyteller asked, what are your plans next? I'll rest for a while and prepare to enter the ancient battlefield. Su Zimo said in a deep voice. The primordial battlefield was a remnant of the primordial war. Many sovereigns had fought against each other in the primordial battlefield, and many divine abilities were preserved inside. It could be in some ancient ruins, on a corpse, in a mountain or river, or in the flowers and trees. Nobody could say for sure what sort of opportunities one would encounter within. Since you're going to enter the ancient battlefield, I'll instruct you on a few things, the old storyteller said. There are restrictions left behind by the human emperor in the ancient battlefield and the emperors of the primordial races cannot enter. You don't have to worry about that. However, that doesn't mean that there's no danger in the ancient battlefield. Monk Kong Yun at the side nodded as well. The convention of the myriad races has ended and the crisis of the primordial races has been resolved. Furthermore, you've completely severed ties with Heavenly Dipper sect, Malevolent Earth sect, Punglai Island and other super sections. There will definitely be patriarchs targeting you in the ancient battlefield. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 1672. The storyteller nodded. That's right. The human emperor's seal is a precious weapon of Tianhuang mainland. When the seal descends, it can suppress thousands of kilometers of mountains and rivers. Even Shenhuang and the others are wary of it. Since the human emperor's seal is in your hands, I'm guessing that someone will definitely fight for it. You have to be extremely careful. Su Zimo nodded. This was a form of training for him by the human emperor and was also the reason why the human emperor left behind the human emperor's seal when he passed down the throne. If he wanted to grow as quickly as possible, he had to experience all of this. If he followed the rules and comprehended divine powers one after another in the ancient battlefield, he might not even be able to become an emperor in 10,000 years, let alone 1,000 years. The storyteller thought for a moment and continued. There are 36 rankings on the divine power ranking and the emperors aren't among them. In other words, those on the divine power ranking are all Mahayana patriarchs. If the divine power ranking was just a title, there was no need to fight for it. Su Zimo was not bothered by such matters. Of the 3 rankings, he had only fought for the phenomenon ranking once. Ancestor Ling Long established the divine power ranking in the ancient era. Titles are only secondary. The storyteller shook his head. Most importantly, there are 36 great divine powers in the divine power ranking. The higher one's ranking is, the more great divine powers they will inherit from the top of the divine power ranking. The storyteller said, for example, if one is ranked 36th on the divine power ranking, they will inherit a great divine power from the divine power ranking. If one is ranked 35th, they will inherit 2 great divine powers. If one is ranked first on the divine power ranking, they will inherit a total of 36 great divine powers. After pausing for a moment, the storyteller continued, not only that, the divine power ranking was personally refined by the human emperor and even fused with his 6 supreme divine powers. If one is ranked in the top 6 of the divine power ranking, they will have a chance of inheriting a supreme divine power from the human emperor. Su Zimo nodded to himself. From the looks of it, the competition for the rankings on the divine power ranking was definitely extremely intense. It was not for the sake of a title, but for immense benefits. One would be able to comprehend an additional great divine power if they advanced a rank. If they comprehended an additional great divine power, their combat strength would increase significantly and they would have a chance of obtaining a better ranking on the divine power ranking. This was a virtuous cycle. What's more, the top 6 on the divine ability roll could even obtain a peerless divine ability of the eternal human emperor. Of course, such a legacy would not allow a Mahayana stage patriarch to instantly comprehend a peerless divine ability. The Mahayana stage patriarch would have to cultivate, accumulate, and comprehend over a long period of time. However, the peerless divine ability was too precious, and this opportunity was too rare. Even in the primordial battlefield, the probability of finding a rare superpower was extremely low. Moreover, it was a peerless divine ability cultivated by the eternal human emperor. It was not hard to imagine that the battles between the top 6 of the divine ability ranking would be even more intense. A cold glint flashed across Su Zimo's eyes as he muttered, "From the looks of it, I still have to fight for this divine abilities ranking." "We must fight for it," the old storyteller said, "but you have to know that those who can be ranked on the divine abilities rankings, even if they're ranked 36th on the divine abilities rankings, are all at the perfected Mahayana realm. You must not underestimate your enemies." One had to comprehend at least 10 great divine abilities to reach the perfected Mahayana realm. It was clear how intense the divine abilities ranking was. The 34th, 27th and 21st of the Divine Abilities ranking, Patriarch Yu Luo, Patriarch Fei Duan and Patriarch Su Jing, appeared in the convention of 10,000 races, and 2 of them were killed by the Dragon Phoenix True Body, leaving only Patriarch Su Jing alive. All 3 of them were at the perfected Mahayana realm. After all, Qinglian's True Body was not a taboo Dragon Phoenix and had yet to grow to its peak. She was only at grade 8 and her cultivation realm was at early stage Mahayana realm. If she were to go against a perfected Mahayana realm being, she would definitely have no chance of winning. However, Qinglian's True Body had immense potential. If she continued to grow and temper her divine abilities or even peerless divine abilities, she might be able to fight against an Emperor weapon at peak grade 8. If she were to grow to grade 9, the old storyteller said, I entered the human emperor's palace this time round to accept the inheritance of the human emperor's palace. However, the guardian of the palace has to transcend the tribulation as well. I might not be able to help you for a period of time from now on. As for the 5 fellow Taoists, the old storyteller looked at the 5 emperors beside him and said, they joined forces with me and forcefully used the divine abilities ranking to suppress the primordial races. However, they suffered a backlash and will probably have to recuperate for at least 1,000 years. You're the only one in the ancient battlefield. You must be careful. Su Zimo nodded. The old storyteller reminded him a few more times before turning to leave and entering the human emperor's palace with the guardian. Rumble. Boom. The human emperor's palace tore through the air and disappeared from everyone's sight. Thereafter, Monk Empyrean Cloud and the other 5 emperors left one after another. The commotion in Enigma Palace gradually dissipated and peace was restored. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he thought of someone. He looked around but could not find any trace of that person. Princess Yufei. At the convention of 10,000 races, he had not expected that Princess Yufei would stand out when his life was on the line. But now, Princess Yufei had already left and her whereabouts were unknown. Su Zimo sighed softly. Before he could thank Princess Yufei, the Princess Yufei had already left silently. Little Fox walked over and blinked with a hint of reluctance in her eyes as she asked softly, Young master, are you leaving again? Monkey and the others looked at Su Zimo with anticipation as well. Although they were reluctant, they did not say anything. All these years, the 7 of them spent more time apart than together. The 100 years in Thousand Demon Valley was a rare time for them to reunite and no one disturbed them. There's no hurry, Su Zimo smiled gently. Now that the matter of the primordial races is resolved, I can rest for a period of time. At that time, I'll call Night Spirit and we'll have a good gathering. Sure. Little Fox could not help but clap and cheer. Monkey pounded its chest excitedly. Linghu grinned as well. When he saw that, Su Zimo's heart warmed. Perhaps the crisis of the human race had yet to disappear. However, Tianhuang mainland would welcome a period of relative peace after the convention of the 10,000 races. Su Zimo believed that with these brothers by his side, they would be able to tide through everything together no matter what would happen to Tianhuang mainland in the future. For the next period of time, the Dragon Phoenix True Body returned to the ancestral Dragon Land to cultivate. Wu Dao's True Body was in Pingyang Town, refining the many cultivation techniques and secret skills that he had snatched and fusing them into the Wu Dao cauldron, preparing to break through to the Mahayana realm. In the next few years, Su Zimo returned to 100 Refinement Sect to break through to the Mahayana realm with Guardian Extreme Fire. He once brought Xiaoning, Jiqing Tian, Leng Ro, Little Fatty and the others back to Misty Peak to reunite with the old immortal Crane and the others. He even went to the capital of Great Zhou to chat with Yao Shui and reminisce about the past. All these years, as the Empress of Great Zhou, Yao Shui had spent most of her energy on how to govern the Great Zhou Empire. As such, her cultivation speed was naturally much slower. Right now, Yao Shui had only just entered the Void Reversion realm. The distance between the 2 of them was actually getting further and further. However, the 2 of them had experienced so much in the past. In Su Zimo's heart, Yao Shui would forever be a special and irreplaceable person. Later on, Su Zimo, Night Spirit, Monkey and the others roamed the 8 demon regions. In order to find out the cause of Qing Qing's father's death, they went to the Thousand Spiders sand dune and caused a huge ruckus. Even the patriarch of the demon race of the Thousand Spiders sand dune did not dare to appear. The seven brothers even roamed the three seas and obtained countless treasures before returning to Tianhuang mainland. 10 years later, Su Zimo bade farewell to Night Spirit and the others and headed to the ancient battlefield. HTTPS Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 1673. Suddenly, a tear appeared in the void of the ancient battlefield and a green-robed cultivator entered in a flash. He had delicate features and was none other than the patriarch of Iraqi Takashi, Su Zimo. The surroundings were barren and desolate. It was a desert without any signs of life. Su Zimo released his spirit consciousness and sensed carefully. Indeed, this ancient battlefield was different from Tianhuang mainland. The ancient battlefield formed a world of its own. In this world, there were remnants of the power of divine powers that did not dissipate through the ages and had a strong might. If a conjoint body mighty figure were to enter, their bodies would not be able to withstand the pressure and they would be crushed into a blood mist, dying. A gigantic golden scroll hovered above the firmaments of the ancient battlefield. It was the divine powers ranking that had descended upon Enigma Palace and suppressed the primordial races. Although the ancient battlefield was extremely vast, one could see the divine powers ranking above the firmaments from every corner of the battlefield. That was also the center of the ancient battlefield. Right now, Su Zimo was only at the early stage Mahayana realm and was in no hurry to fight for a spot on the divine powers ranking. Right now, the most important thing for him was to comprehend as many lesser divine powers as possible and temper Qinglian's true body continuously. As long as he comprehended enough lesser divine powers, he could attempt to comprehend greater divine powers. Qinglian was born with some divine powers to begin with. There were lesser divine powers, greater divine powers, and even peerless divine powers that were endless. Of course, the process was gradual. Even if Su Zimo was extraordinarily talented, he could not comprehend a single peerless divine power to become an emperor. Su Zimo intended to look around first and see if he could find some lesser divine powers to comprehend and cultivate. Su Zimo did not distinguish the direction and continued forward in the desert. Every single grain of sand and stone in the ancient battlefield could contain some sort of divine power. Su Zimo walked extremely slowly and scanned his surroundings with his spirit consciousness. Before long, a stone stele appeared before him. Half of the stone stele was sliced off by some sort of divine weapon and the cut was extremely smooth. There were some words carved on the remaining half of the stone stele that were clearly surging with the power of divine powers. There was a minor divine ability engraved on the stone tablet. Su Zimo looked at the stone tablet from afar with a calm expression. Suddenly, a hint of mockery flashed in the depths of his eyes as he walked towards the stone tablet. Su Zimo approached the stone tablet and examined it with rapt attention. The runes on the stone tablet were twisted and curved, and every crack was filled with a ferocious aura. It was as if there were evil spirits baring their fangs and brandishing their claws as they charged out of the stone tablet. Suddenly, Su Zimo felt as though the desert around him had disappeared. It was as though he had fallen into hell. His surroundings were dark and filled with blood qi, surrounded by countless fiends. Su Zimo had a perplexed look on his face. It was as if he had sunk into hell and was unable to extricate himself. Suddenly, a biting cold murderous intent burst out from Su Zimo's body. "Umph." Su Zimo sneered and his eyes instantly regained their clarity. He condensed his divine sense and the hellish scene around him disappeared. Su Zimo stomped his foot heavily. Boom! There was a deafening sound. A gigantic pit appeared in the desert beneath him with sand and gravel flying everywhere. A figure wielding a sword appeared. The blade of the sword pierced Su Zimo's soul. A hint of cruelty flashed through the eyes of the figure. In his opinion, his sword was enough to pierce Su Zimo's soul. Clang! Before that person could finish his thought, a crisp sound echoed in his ears. Not only did his sword fail to pierce Su Zimo's soul, it even let out the sound of metal clashing. His sword was bent, as though it had struck an impenetrable wall. Its light dimmed and it almost snapped. Ah! That person's expression changed and he arrived on the other side of Su Zimo in a flash. He narrowed his eyes and sized up Su Zimo without saying anything. Su Zimo's gaze shifted and landed on that person. It was a skinny cultivator who was less than 10 feet tall and looked like a dwarf. He was at early-stage Mahayana realm. Even the weakest cultivators in the ancient battlefield were at least Mahayana patriarchs. There's no feud between us. Why do you want to kill me? Su Zimo said coldly. Heh! The skinny cultivator sneered. How can you be so naive after cultivating to the Mahayana realm? There's no reason for the fighting and killing in the cultivation world. Actually, there was indeed a minor divine power nurtured on the damaged stone steel. After the skinny cultivator cultivated that minor divine power, he did not leave and instead guarded the damaged stone steel, waiting for the arrival of other patriarchs. If he felt that he was not confident, he would remain motionless and choose not to attack. However, if he encountered someone like Su Zimo who was at early-stage Mahayana realm and did not seem threatening, he would ambush and kill the latter. Through that method, the skinny patriarch had succeeded a few times. He had even obtained a few minor divine powers from other fallen patriarchs. Unfortunately, his opponent today was Su Zimo. The moment he caught sight of the stone steel, Su Zimo's powerful spirit perception sensed danger. Young man, hand over the dermic treasure on your feet. If you have any divine powers, hand them over as well and I can spare your life. The skinny patriarch said coldly. In his opinion, Su Zimo must be wearing a boot-type dermic treasure that was invulnerable and could even defend against his sword. Su Zimo smiled and asked, "You don't recognize me? I don't care who you are." The skinny patriarch sneered, "I've killed more than 10 newbies like you who have just entered the Mahayana realm." "Is that so?" Su Zimo nodded and said indifferently, "You'll pay with your life today then." Before his sentence was finished, Su Zimo's figure flashed and his blood chi surged, emitting a series of resplendent lights. He reached out and grabbed the skinny patriarch's head. Pissed. The skinny patriarch's expression changed. The power and aura released by Su Zimo's attack was way too strong. He felt as though he was in grave danger and was shocked. But without hesitation, the skinny patriarch channeled the sword in his hands and channeled his blood chi at the same time, stabbing towards Su Zimo's palm. Clang. The sword pierced Su Zimo's palm and a crisp sound rang out once more. Ordinary dermic treasures could not hurt the true body of a rank 8 Qinglian at all. Su Zimo's expression was cold and his gaze was indifferent. Channeling strength in his palm, he grabbed the sword and shook it forcefully. Crack, crack. Cracks appeared on the sword one after another. A tremendous amount of power surged into the skinny patriarch's body. The skinny patriarch shuddered as though he was struck by lightning. His palm was torn and he retreated continuously with fresh blood. Su Zimo chased after him like a shadow. Hell Dao! The skinny patriarch hollered and released a minor divine power. Hell Dao was one of the minor divine powers on the stone steel. There were many minor divine powers and the Hell Dao was one of the most powerful among them. Su Zimo smiled gently and extended his palm slowly. In his palm was a green lotus. End of chapter. Chapter 1674. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios Emperor Clan, page 1/1. When the skinny patriarch released the Hell Dao, the scenery around him changed instantly. Countless ghostly figures overlapped in a sinister manner and blood chi filled the air in complete darkness. The Hell Dao was the most savage divine power among the 3 evil Daos. The Beast Dao could turn humans into beasts. The Hungry Ghost Dao could toss living beings into the Hungry Ghost Dao for them to be devoured and tortured by countless hungry ghosts. Once one entered the Hell Dao, they would never see the light of day again. It was an endless abyss that nobody could break free from. However, the moment Su Zimo released the green lotus flower in his palm, all the scenes in hell dissipated. The entire hell was riddled with holes by the light released by the creation Qinglian. The skinny patriarch's expression changed starkly. It was only at this moment that he realized who he had encountered. Araki Takashi. The skinny patriarch exclaimed softly, "You're Araki Takashi." Although he was indifferent towards the matters of Tianhuang mainland, the commotion caused at the convention of the myriad races was way too great, such that even the human emperor descended personally. Furthermore, the human emperor sent down a decree to personally appoint Araki Takashi as his successor. Everyone knew about it. Even though he had been cultivating in seclusion in the ancient battlefield all year round, he knew about this as well. The creation Qinglian was an utmost treasure of the universe. That was one of the greatest characteristics of Araki Takashi. It was said that Araki Takashi went on a rampage at the convention of the myriad races and even killed some Mahayana patriarchs. The skinny patriarch did not dare to go against him and turned to flee. In a flash, the skinny patriarch used dermic power in his feet and sped into the distance at an extremely fast speed, leaving behind a series of afterimages. Heaven's Foot. It was another minor divine power. This was one of the 6 divine powers of the Buddhist monasteries. Furthermore, if this minor divine power was cultivated to its limits, it could reach the level of a major divine power. It was one of the most famous escape techniques of the Buddhist monasteries. Wings appeared behind Su Zimo and streaks of lightning appeared on his body. At the same time, he released earth-traversing golden light and his speed was pushed to its limits. Misty wings, wind and thunder escape, earth-traversing golden light, these 3 great escape techniques erupted at the same time. Moreover, these 3 great escape techniques also burst forth with extremely powerful divine abilities. After Su Zimo stepped into the Mahayana realm, the earth-traversing golden light had completely transformed into a minor divine ability. Golden lightning flashed and chased after the skinny patriarch. The distance between the two of them quickly shortened. The skinny patriarch turned around and was startled. In just a few dozen breaths, Su Zimo had already caught up to him. Su Zimo flicked his finger lightly, and a white sword light burst out, instantly piercing through the thin old ancestor's body. The heaven-slaying sword chi descended. Blood-red light surged. Sword chi filled with killing intent exploded within the small patriarch's body. The patriarch's body instantly turned into a bloody mist. Seeing that the situation was bad, the skinny old ancestor had already escaped with his essence spirit before the heaven-slaying sword chi descended. Condense. As the skinny old ancestor's essence spirit fled, he used blood reincarnation in an attempt to reconstruct his body. Strangle. Right then, Su Zimo's voice sounded coldly. Within the blood mist formed by the skinny old ancestor's body, the heaven-slaying sword chi burst forth with an endless sharpness and destroyed the life force of the blood mist. The skinny old ancestor's body was completely drained of life force by the heaven-slaying sword chi, and there was not a single drop of blood left. The prerequisite for blood reincarnation was to possess a drop of blood as well. But now, the skinny old ancestor was only left with a panicked essence spirit. Snip. A bolt of lightning descended and struck the essence spirit of the skinny old ancestor. Although the skinny old ancestor was not killed directly, his essence spirit was severely injured. With that delay, Su Zimo's figure descended and he reached out to capture the skinny old ancestor's essence spirit. Without hesitation, he released his soul-searching technique. A gigantic ball of light appeared in Su Zimo's palm. One after another, black threads pierced the skinny old ancestor's essence spirit and absorbed his memories continuously. Su Zimo closed his eyes and searched for the most useful parts of the skinny old ancestor's memories. A moment later, the skinny old ancestor's essence spirit withered completely and dimmed. As for Su Zimo, he gained quite a bit from his soul-searching technique as well. The skinny old ancestor had indeed killed a lot of people with the help of the broken stone tablet. Because of this, he had obtained the 6 paths minor divine ability. He had obtained the heavenly feat after killing a monk from the Xiankong temple. Now that Su Zimo had memorized all 6 lesser divine powers, he was prepared to find a secluded place to comprehend them in seclusion. After arriving at the ancient battlefield, All the Mahayana patriarchs spent most of their time comprehending divine powers. Su Zimo was no exception. Su Zimo returned to the broken stone stele and memorized all the words on it. Gradually, he sank into the desert and vanished, beginning his long period of seclusion cultivation. Not long after Su Zimo's figure disappeared, a person appeared in the void not far away. No one knew when that person arrived or how long he had been here. He managed to hide from Su Zimo's senses. It was a man in plain robes with fluttering long hair that covered most of his face. One could vaguely see a blood scar in his glabella. Monk Daming. Monk Daming had entered the ancient battlefield earlier than Su Zimo. He looked in the direction where Su Zimo disappeared and remained silent for a moment before looking at the broken stone stele and memorizing the words on it as well. Monk Daming knew that Su Zimo possessed an extremely sharp spirit perception that was unpredictable, and even he did not dare to get too close. Far away, he gazed at the stone stele for a long time before heaving a sigh of relief. "Araki Takashi, you finally caught up to me. I'll wait for you at the front." Monk Daming muttered internally and turned to leave. At the same time, in a relatively well-preserved palace in the primordial battlefield, a middle-aged man sat high above with his eyes closed. He exuded a majestic and domineering aura that looked down on all living beings. This was a true emperor. Right then, four Mahayana patriarchs from Chaos Essence sect entered. Their robes were similar and they were all from Chaos Essence sect. Two of them were at mid-stage Mahayana, one was at late-stage Mahayana and the last was at perfected Mahayana. The perfected Mahayana was called Diyun and was ranked 33rd on the Divine Powers ranking. "Greetings, Emperor Diyu." When the four Chaos Essence sect patriarchs entered the hall and caught sight of the high and mighty middle-aged man, their eyes were filled with respect as they knelt and greeted him loudly. The D clan was a major clan in the cultivation world. Although the D clan's strength and numbers could not compare to the three aristocratic families, they had patriarchs and emperors holding down the fort. The D clan was the most ancient clan with a legacy that originated from the ancient era. Legend has it that the ancestor of the D clan was the first person to establish an empire in Tianhuang mainland, and his descendants had an incomparably noble bloodline that was protected by the heavens. The D clan had a long history and would give birth to a peerless monster incarnate in almost every generation. For example, in this generation, there was a monster incarnate like Di-in. However, it was a pity that he was killed by Su Zimo and died prematurely. Reader's Residence website. Chapter 1675. The top 6 of the Divine Power ranking were the strongest Mahayana patriarchs in the ancient battlefield. The top 6 could obtain a supreme divine power from the inheritance of the ancient human emperor, and there was no way one could kill their way in without resorting to extreme measures. Nobody expected that the top 6 of the divine power ranking would have one less person before the battle even began. Strange. A Mahayana patriarch frowned slightly and said in a deep voice, "There's no pattern to how that mysterious person hunted down the patriarchs on the divine power ranking. Some of them came from Snowdrift Valley, Shura sect, Formless Monastery, and even the Immortals, Buddhists and Fiends. What's the background of that person? Why is he hunting down the patriarchs on the divine power ranking?" Another person said, "Isn't he afraid that the emperors of the super sects in the ancient battlefield will attack him?" Stop guessing. That person will definitely appear once the divine power ranking begins. The battle for the divine power ranking was getting closer. The number of Mahayana patriarchs near the divine power ranking was still increasing and had already exceeded 1,000. A few hundred years ago, Su Zimo distributed the malevolent spirit fruit in Enigma Palace and allowed many half-martial ancestor experts to break through into the Mahayana realm and enter the ancient battlefield. Right then, a loud boom sounded from not far away and the ground trembled, as though a peerless expert had broken out of seclusion. Many patriarchs turned to look. On the horizon, a blazing thunderbolt sped over and arrived above the heads of many patriarchs instantly, revealing a figure. It was Patriarch Swift Thunder, who was 3rd on the divine power ranking. Many cultivators looked at Ancestor Swift Thunder with a hint of respect. Forefather Swift Thunder had occupied the third place on the divine ability ranking for 20,000 years. He had defeated several powerful opponents in the divine ability ranking twice. Fufu. Suddenly, a chuckle sounded from not far away. A figure walked over slowly in midair with a smile and cupped his fists. Brother Swift Thunder, how have you been? The crowd became restless. That figure was none other than Patriarch Spixen, who was 5th on the divine power ranking. But are you here to challenge me again? Patriarch Swift Thunder glanced sideways at Patriarch Spixen and smirked with a mocking expression. Ancestor Pyexen didn't get angry at all and said, "It doesn't matter. If it doesn't work this time, we'll wait for another 10,000 years. I'm still young, but you've already started to walk down the path of the peak. If this drags on, you'll definitely lose." 20,000 years ago, Forefather Pyexen had been defeated by Forefather Ji Lei during the battle for the divine ability ranking. Over the years, the two of them had fought several times, and Ancestor Pyexen was always defeated. The two of them could be considered old enemies. Now, as soon as they met, they were at each other's throats, and the smell of gunpowder was strong. I've heard that Forefather Swift Thunder is not young. I think he's around 70 to 80,000 years old. So big already. Normally, 70 to 80,000 years old should be approaching the end of one's life. But Ancestor Swift Thunder doesn't look old at all. His chi and blood are still so strong. Some patriarchs discussed in low voices. The two of you better save your strength. Another figure slowly appeared in the air. It was a woman with long purple hair and a long sword on her back. She had a serious expression on her face. 4th on the divine ability roll, Purple Firmament Sex, Patriarch Zi Shuang. Patriarch Purple Frost said, "The two of you have been in seclusion for many years. I'm afraid you haven't heard of a monster incarnate that appeared in the ancient battlefield and specializes in killing patriarchs on the divine ability ranking. Up till now, there are at least 6 patriarchs that have died in his hands. Furthermore, no one knows of his identity and background. He's extremely mysterious." Forefather Swift Thunder did not think much of it and said indifferently, "He's just a scoundrel who hides his head and shows his tail. There's nothing to worry about." All of a sudden, the world seemed to have darkened as an extremely oppressive aura descended, causing everyone to feel as though a calamity was about to befall them. All the patriarchs present felt their chests tighten, and they found it hard to breathe. The patriarchs were all too familiar with that aura. It was Forefather Chi Huang of Malevolent Earth Sect who was number 2 on the divine ability ranking. Forefather Chi Huang was expressionless as he walked towards the divine ability ranking slowly, exuding a powerful might. The discussions in the crowd gradually died down. Everyone subconsciously quieted down. At that moment, apart from those who died, all the patriarchs on the divine ability ranking were present. "Look, it's that person." "Who?" "It's that mysterious man who killed the patriarchs of the divine ability ranking." The moment Forefather Chi Huang appeared, the crowd fell silent before a deafening uproar broke out once more. Even Forefather Chi Huang could not suppress the situation. Many patriarchs turned towards the north one after another. A man in plain robes strode over. His long hair was disheveled and covered most of his face. Only one of this man's eyes was exposed, but it was deep and bright, as if it was filled with boundless wisdom. Anyone who looked into this eye would unconsciously sink into it. A faint trace of blood could be seen on the man's glabella. However, nobody connected that trace of blood to the Heavenly Eye race's Heavenly Eye. That was because the ancient battlefield was sealed by a barrier and it was impossible for anyone from the primordial races to barge in. When they saw that trace of blood, many patriarchs merely thought that it was a scar on the man's glabella. "It's him," Patriarch Purple Frost said sternly. "I caught a glimpse of that man from afar. He's extremely strong and unfathomable. I don't have any confidence against him either. Where did this person come from? Why haven't I heard of him before?" Patriarch Pyexen frowned slightly. Even he felt uneasy when he exchanged glances with the white-robed man. Patriarch Swift Thunder narrowed his eyes and his gaze flickered in deep thought. Patriarch Qi Huang turned around as well and glared at the incoming person intently, exuding an extremely dangerous aura. Against the gazes of so many experts, the white-robed man was calm and composed as he strolled over casually without any uneasiness. All of a sudden, as though he sensed something, the white-robed man turned around and looked towards the east. At that moment, even Patriarch Qi Huang and the others did not notice anything. However, before long, a figure appeared in the eastern horizon. His green robes fluttered and his black hair cascaded down like a waterfall. His eyes were clear as he rode the wind. Araki Takashi. Araki Takashi is here as well. Araki Takashi truly isn't afraid of death. Even those who had not seen Su Zimo personally could guess the identity of the green-robed cultivator based on his appearance and the powerful life force he exuded. You're here. When Su Zimo arrived, he shifted his gaze and greeted the white-robed man. Everyone was shocked. From his tone, Araki Takashi seemed to know this mysterious man. While others might not know who the white-robed man was, Su Zimo naturally knew that the mysterious man who killed the Patriarch of the Divine Powers ranking was Monk Daming. Why did you kill them? Su Zimo frowned slightly and went straight to the point. He could understand if Monk Daming killed the Patriarchs of Heavenly Dipper Sect, Malevolent Earth Sect, and Penglai Island. However, he could not understand why Monk Daming would attack the Patriarchs of super sects such as Snowdrift Valley. There shouldn't be any grudges between them. After a moment of silence, Monk Daming replied, "It's for the same reason why I want to kill you." You mean? Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Reader's residence. Chapter 1676. Only by comprehending more than 10 lesser divine powers could one enter the mid-stage Mahayana realm. Comprehending 10 lesser divine powers in 100 years was already an extremely shocking speed. On one hand, it was because Su Zimo was equivalent to a human form creation Qinglian. He seized the creations of heaven and earth and comprehended divine powers at a speed far faster than most cultivators. On the other hand, Su Zimo witnessed the shocking battle between many emperors at the convention of 10,000 races personally. A battle of that level was a rare and precious experience for him. Most importantly, the eternal human emperor made use of his Qinglian true body to fight against Tian Shenhuang and the other emperors of the primordial races. At that time, in the eyes of many cultivators, it seemed like peerless divine powers were released the entire time. However, Su Zimo's black-haired essence spirit could sense it clearly in his consciousness. In the battle, the eternal human emperor made use of many lesser and greater divine powers to assist him. The reason why he broke out of seclusion this time round was because Su Zimo had encountered a bottleneck. If he wanted to break through to the late-stage Mahayana realm, he had to comprehend a great divine power. Su Zimo's Qinglian true body condensed the Tao techniques of the immortal, Buddhist and fiend sects and cultivated 3 lesser divine powers. There were many great divine powers of the immortal, Buddhist and fiend sects, and he had the chance to comprehend all of them. However, it was way too difficult to comprehend a great divine power unless he had other extreme methods. Su Zimo looked at the divine power ranking above the firmaments in deep thought. Up till now, he was not prepared to fight for the divine power ranking. Given his current combat strength, if he used all his trump cards, he could definitely fight for a spot on the divine power ranking. However, it was extremely difficult for him to enter the top 6 of the divine power ranking. Su Zimo planned to comprehend a great divine power and enter the late-stage Mahayana realm before fighting for the divine power ranking. Araki Takashi, so you're here. Right then, a cold voice sounded from not far away. A figure appeared slowly in the void and sneered at Su Zimo. The Patriarch's face was withered and yellow, and he was as thin as a bamboo pole. His clothes were colorful and filled with a faint stench. Su Zimo's expression remained the same. The commotion caused by him entering the Mahayana realm would naturally attract other cultivators. This old ancestor looked like a sickly person, but in reality, his entire body was crawling with poisonous creatures. If one were to look closely at the colorful clothes, one would notice that the clothes were wriggling slightly. They were made up of all kinds of poisonous substances. Poison Sect's Mahayana stage patriarch. Su Zimo glanced at this person casually and said faintly, "You are at the early Dashang stage, are you looking for death?" Even though the patriarch of Poison Sect had stayed in the ancient battlefield for more than 10,000 years, he had only comprehended a few minor divine powers and was only at early stage Mahayana. But even if it was an old ancestor in the middle Dashang stage, they would not want to fight with him. In terms of strength, a mid-Mahayana forefather would naturally be able to suppress the Poison Sect's forefather. However, the patriarch of Poison Sect was covered in venomous insects. If he was accidentally bitten, he would be severely injured even if he didn't die. Unless an irresolvable conflict broke out, most Mahayana patriarchs would choose to avoid the patriarch of Poison Sect. Araki Takashi, others might be afraid of you, but I, Luo-in, am not. The patriarch of Poison Sect named Luo-in said coldly, "Furthermore, I don't mind telling you that there are countless Mahayana patriarchs in the ancient battlefield who are searching for your whereabouts in a frenzy. The moment they find you, you'll definitely die. Is that so?" Suddenly, Araki Takashi raised his leg and stomped on the ground viciously. Suddenly, a pool of blood burst out from the desert beneath his feet with an incomparably nauseating stench. Before a venomous insect could reveal itself, it was crushed by his stomp. Su Zimo swept his gaze towards Patriarch Luo-in and said coldly, "How dare you attack me? You must have a death wish." In a flash, Su Zimo arrived before Patriarch Luo-in in the blink of an eye. At an extremely fast speed, he extended his finger and stabbed towards Patriarch Luo-yin's glabella. Patriarch Luo-yin's gaze flickered sinisterly as he shuddered and released streaks of colorful light that shot towards Su Zimo. He had nurtured those venomous insects for tens of thousands of years. Even late-stage or perfected Mahayana patriarchs would find it difficult to survive the bites of so many venomous insects. However, Su Zimo's gaze was like lightning and he did not dodge at all. Ignoring the incoming venomous insects, he continued stabbing with his finger. He changed his move at the last moment and closed two fingers, conjuring a sword art that released a heaven-slaying sword chi. This time round, the change in move was so fast that Patriarch Luo-in could not react in time. The moment the heaven-slaying sword chi pierced Patriarch Luo-yin's glabella, the venomous insects landed on Su Zimo's body and bit wildly. "Araki Takashi, you're so ruthless." Patriarch Luo-yin's eyes dimmed gradually. He had not expected that Su Zimo would not dodge his venomous insects at all and pierce his consciousness with a single finger. Even his essence spirit could not escape. "It doesn't matter even if I die." Patriarch Luo-yin's final remnant consciousness said fiercely, "It won't be long before you die with me. I'll watch you die from the poison right here." At that moment, Su Zimo's body was filled with venomous insects. There was almost no part of his body that was exposed. Anyone who saw that would feel their scalps tingle. Who could survive being surrounded by so many venomous insects? "Seems like you don't know what a creation is at all, Qinglian." Right then, Su Zimo's voice sounded. It was still calm without any emotions. "All of you get lost." Suddenly, Su Zimo hollered and channeled his blood chi. Suddenly, streams of green light burst forth from his body and shone in all directions with endless brilliance. The venomous insects let out a series of screeches against the scouring of the green light and fell off one after another, struggling on the ground in extreme pain. The creation Qinglian was a supreme treasure of the universe that was flawless and impervious to all poisons. The green light dyed the heavens and illuminated the mountains and rivers in a supreme manner. It was the most effective against venomous insects and filth. Even ordinary lotus flowers could remain untainted by mud, let alone the creation Qinglian. All the esteemed monks of the Buddhist monasteries who had attained the Tao, such as Bodhi and Buddha, sat on various lotus platforms. It was clear how mysterious the lotus flower was. It was just a deviation in perception, and old Master Luo-in had perished. Su Zimo was not even willing to rummage through Patriarch Luo-yin's storage bag. He released a ball of Dao fire and tossed it onto Patriarch Luo Yin's body. When the ball of Dao fire descended, venomous insects flew out of Patriarch Luo Yin's body one after another. Their bodies burned with flames and they struggled continuously. However, before long, they were burned to ashes by the merciless Dao fire. Roar! Right then, a ferocious roar sounded from afar, as though some supreme fiend had appeared and was approaching Su Zimo rapidly. On the other side, powerful auras burst forth one after another and sped over. Su Zimo had already cultivated the heavenly eye, heavenly ear and heavenly foot of the Buddhist monasteries. He had already sensed those experts even though they were still far away. More and more patriarchs were heading in this direction. At that moment, Su Zimo could completely rely on the three great divine powers of the Buddhist monasteries to find a gap and escape. However, his lips curled slightly and he did not leave. Instead, he stood on the spot motionlessly and waited for the experts to rush over. End of chapter. Chapter 1677. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor, Atlas Studios Sword Chi Prison. Page 1/1. From the west, a tall and burly figure sprinted over. With every leap, he would cross dozens of feet. Every time he landed, the ground would tremble. In the blink of an eye, the tall figure had already arrived. The figure was covered in golden fur and emitted a rotting stench. His 10 fingernails were long and slightly curved, resembling 10 scimitars that shone with a cold glint. That was the battle corpse of Corpse Refinement Cult. A Corpse Refinement Cult patriarch was hidden nearby and did not appear. However, he was secretly controlling a battle corpse to arrive before Su Zimo. It was clear that the battle corpse was a Mahayana patriarch when it was alive and was tempered with many secret skills of Corpse Refinement Cult to create such a monster. Roar! Naturally, the battle corpse was fearless against Su Zimo and roared with a disgusting, yellow, sticky liquid flowing from the corners of its mouth. On the other side, 2 Mahayana patriarchs of Heavenly Dipper sect arrived. The one on the left had a black birthmark in the shape of a leaf on his face. His Dao title was Tyrant Nether and he was at the late-stage Mahayana realm. The one on the right had a horse face and a cold gaze. His Dao title was Broken Glory and he was at the mid-stage Mahayana realm. Those 2 patriarchs had even arrived at Enigma Palace with Patriarch Yuluo and the others. From the west, 3 cultivators in pitch-black robes arrived together with a murderous aura. They were the patriarchs of Malevolent Earth sect. One was at the mid-stage Mahayana realm and 2 were at the late-stage Mahayana realm. The sound of a tsunami could be heard from the east. Endless dermic powers gathered and a Mahayana patriarch rode the waves. He wielded a silver trident and was shrouded in water vapor with a torrential aura. Penglai Island's patriarch Flying Waves was at the perfected Mahayana realm. 2 Chaos Essence Sect's patriarchs sped over. One of them was Di Yun, at the perfected Mahayana realm and ranked 33rd on the Divine Power ranking. The other was Chaos Essence Sect's patriarch Ling Yen, at the late-stage Mahayana realm. The 2 of them rushed over immediately after receiving the news. The other Chaos Essence Sect's patriarchs were still on the way. Even more Mahayana patriarchs were rushing over. Su Zimo's ears twitched. He could hear the sound of clothes fluttering from all directions. Araki Takashi's appearance had alarmed countless Mahayana realm patriarchs. These were only the closest group of Grand Ascension Stage patriarchs. As time passed, more and more Grand Ascension Stage patriarchs would arrive. Everyone, what are you going to do with such a big lineup? Su Zimo's expression was calm as he looked around and asked indifferently. Araki Takashi. Dark Tyrant Forefather coldly said, Your time has come. A Malevolent Earth sect patriarch said coldly, Araki Takashi, you stole the limelight in Enigma Palace and even killed Patriarch Fei Duan of my sect. Today, I'll have you pay with your life. Ancestor Fei Duan was killed by the Dragon Phoenix True Body. If they really faced the Dragon Phoenix True Body, these old ancestors really did not dare to say anything. However, the real body of Qinglian in front of them was only in the middle Deshang stage, and she had only comprehended 10 small magical powers. Everyone did not have much fear in their hearts. Furthermore, they had the advantage in numbers. Among these Mahayana realm patriarchs, there was an expert of the divine powers ranking like Di-Yun. It was more than enough for them to take down Araki Takashi at the middle Dashang stage. Di-Yun glared at Suzumo and said slowly, "Araki Takashi, your enmity with the D clan will be your greatest mistake. Everyone, this is the moment to kill Araki Takashi." Di-Yun waved his arm and shouted. Sush, sush, sush. Many Mahayana realm patriarchs attacked one after another, and their dermic treasures transformed into streaks of divine light that interweaved in midair, forming an inescapable net without any gaps. Many dermic treasures smashed down toward Suzumo. Good timing! Suzumo roared in laughter and reared his head. Channeling his blood chi, the sound of tsunamis echoed from his body as his aura rose rapidly. Sush! Suzumo's figure seemed to have vanished and was replaced by a creation Qinglian that soared into the skies. It shone brightly and illuminated the entire heavenly cycle. Many dermic treasures were shone upon by the green light and could not smash down. All of them froze in midair and swayed slightly, as though they were under immense pressure. None of the dermic treasures landed on the creation Qinglian. After a momentary stalemate, the light emitted by the dermic treasures flickered instead and their trembling became more obvious. "Disperse!" Suzumo's voice sounded and he hollered softly. The green lotus of creation swayed gently, and the entire void seemed to materialize. Wave-like ripples spread out and struck the numerous Dharma treasures. Bang, bang, bang. Some of the stronger dermic treasures were sent flying by the ripples. There were also some early-stage Mahayana dermic treasures that were swept by the ripples and turned into dust instantly, dissipating with the wind. Massive cracks appeared on the dermic treasures of mid-stage Mahayana patriarchs as well. They dimmed and fell from midair, reduced to scrap metal. The dermic treasures of late-stage Mahayana patriarchs were only able to remain intact against the impact of the creation Qinglian after being refined by great divine powers. Some of the Mahayana patriarchs shuddered and spat out blood. Many of those dermic treasures were the destiny dermic treasures of the Mahayana patriarchs. Now that their destiny dermic treasures were severely damaged, the essence spirits of the Mahayana patriarchs were affected as well. Humph! Suzumo's figure appeared once more and vanished from the spot in a flash. Arriving before the three malevolent Earth sect patriarchs, he slapped down with a flip of his palm. The malevolent Earth sect patriarch's dermic treasure shattered and he spat out blood. Before he could react, he was slapped to death by Suzumo. His essence spirit was still in his consciousness when it was shattered by Suzumo's power. When the other two malevolent Earth sect patriarchs saw that things were amiss, they turned and fled, wanting to distance themselves from Suzumo. Trying to escape? Suzumo sneered and closed two fingers, conjuring a sword art before slashing gently in the direction of the two malevolent Earth sect patriarchs. Suzumo's sword fingers released 1,000 heaven-slaying sword chi that enveloped the two malevolent Earth sect patriarchs instantly, forming a sword chi prison. Initially, the two malevolent Earth sect patriarchs could still fight against the heaven-slaying sword chi with the divine powers they cultivated. However, there were 1,000 heaven-slaying sword chi and they were sharp as they sliced at the two malevolent Earth sect patriarchs repeatedly. In just a few breaths, bloody wounds appeared on the bodies of the two malevolent Earth sect patriarchs. Another 3 breaths passed. The bodies of the two malevolent Earth sect patriarchs were sliced into pieces and turned into 2 clouds of blood mist. A single breath later, the 2 clouds of blood mist were minced into nothingness by the heaven-slaying sword chi, and the essence spirits of the two malevolent Earth sect patriarchs died within as well. The two malevolent Earth sect patriarchs were ground to death by the 1,000 heaven-slaying sword chi. You guys want to kill me with just your capabilities? Suzumo looked around with a scorching gaze and a green glow emanated from his body. With a torrential aura, he was like a god and no one dared to look him in the eye. Book Guest Residence Reading Website. Chapter 1678. Great Rain Summoning. Patriarch Flying Waves of Penglai Island waved the trident in his hand and pointed it at Su Zimo from afar, releasing a great divine power. Rumble. Boom. Thunder rumbled, and in the blink of an eye, dark clouds covered Su Zimo's head. The next moment, a torrential rain poured down. This was no ordinary rain. Every single drop of rain was condensed from an extremely powerful divine power. Like needles and swords, they could penetrate a cultivator's body with ease. Great Wind Summoning. Chaos Essence Sextian took out a horsetail whisk from his storage bag and waved it at Su Zimo, causing a gust of wind to howl from the flat ground. This was an astral wind from above the 9 heavens that could penetrate the organs and even destroy a cultivator's essence spirit. Cultivators whose cultivation realms were not high enough would be blown apart by this great calling the wind, leaving only a corpse behind. Roar. On the other side, the golden-haired battle corpse roared with a menacing expression. It bared its teeth and charged towards Su Zimo with a ferocious glint in its eyes. The other Mahayana patriarchs attacked as well. Instantly, countless divine powers tore through the air, causing sand and rocks to fly in a massive manner. Su Zimo's expression was fearless as the blood chi in his body surged with the sound of tidal waves. A green glow burst forth and blocked the torrential rain from the skies. Drip, 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 drip. The rain continued to fall as though it was endless. Before long, it penetrated the light outside Qinglian's true body and landed on her body. Patriarch Fei Duan's eyes lit up. Without the protection of the green glow, his great divine power was enough to kill Su Zimo. Clang, clang, clang. However, when the rain landed on Qinglian's true body, not only did it not cause any bloodstains, it shattered instead with the crisp sound of jade colliding. Although the great calling the wind technique blew away the green light around Su Zimo, it couldn't hurt Qinglian at all. Su Zimo's figure stood firmly in the wind. His eyes were frighteningly bright, and his entire body was filled with a cold, murderous intent. What? Ancestor Fei Duan's eyes widened as his pupils contracted. His great divine art couldn't even hurt Su Zimo's Qinglian true body. With a flash of golden lightning, Su Zimo's figure disappeared from the spot. In the next moment, Su Zimo arrived in front of Ancestor Fei Duan. Ancestor Fei Duan also reacted very quickly. He condensed a huge wave beside him, completely protecting his body as he tried to distance himself. Kill! Su Zimo shouted as he unleashed his sound domain's secret technique. While under the vibration of Su Zimo's sound domain's secret technique, this monstrous wave instantly dissipated. Ancestor Fei Duan's figure was completely revealed as well. His eyes were bloodshot and 2 streaks of blood seeped out of his ears. He had suffered a tremendous impact. Kill! Ancestor Fei Duan shouted as well and waved his silver trident with both hands, stabbing it towards Su Zimo who was in front of him. The gigantic trident was filled with an extremely powerful divine power. Su Zimo did not dodge or avoid. He reached out with his fair palm and grabbed the tip of the trident. No matter how Ancestor Fei Duan channeled his blood chi and divine powers, the trident did not budge in Su Zimo's palm at all. Die! Su Zimo shouted softly and gripped the tip of the trident, exerting strength and pushing forward viciously. Exclamation point! The trident sliced through Ancestor Fei Duan's palm and pierced his chest, causing blood to spurt out. The tremendous power caused Ancestor Fei Duan's chest to explode. The difference in strength was way too great. Su Zimo flicked his finger gently and a heaven-slaying sword chi burst forth, tearing through the air. Ancestor Fei Duan's essence spirit had just escaped and was sliced by the heaven-slaying sword chi before he could form a body and died. A perfected Mahayana patriarch was killed by Qinglian's true body on the spot. All of the Mahayana stage patriarchs present were shocked by this. Although Ancestor Fei Duan was not an expert on the divine power ranking, he was still at the perfected Mahayana realm and had comprehended more than 10 great divine powers. However, he could not defend against Su Zimo's attack. Su Zimo delayed slightly after killing Ancestor Fei Duan, and many lesser and greater divine powers came crashing down. Qinglian's true body could not dodge at all. Bang, bang, bang. Su Zimo's true body of Qinglian could not stand in midair against the attacks of so many divine powers and was drowned instantly, smashing heavily onto the ground. Gravel flew and a human-shaped pit was formed on the ground. Is he dead? He shouldn't be dead yet. I didn't see Araki Takashi's essence spirit escape. It's fine. Even if he's not dead, Araki Takashi will definitely be severely injured. That's right. If we can't kill Araki Takashi with this wave of attacks, we'll just have to launch another round of attacks. If 2 rounds don't work, we'll do 10 rounds. Even if we drag it out, we'll be able to exhaust Araki Takashi to death. Many Mahayana patriarchs discussed as they leaned towards the pit. Right then, a mocking laughter sounded from the pit. Su Zimo stood up slowly from the pit. Although his green robes were tattered and his body was riddled with wounds, his eyes were still bright and terrifying. You're still laughing? Patriarch Tyrant of Heavenly Dipper sect grit his teeth. We'll make sure you can't even cry later. Surveying his surroundings, Su Zimo shook his head gently and mocked, You guys are still too weak. Right in front of the Mahayana patriarchs, the wounds on Su Zimo's body healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, those wounds were healed. Su Zimo had already recovered to his original state. The expressions of many Mahayana patriarchs changed slightly. The bloodlines of Mahayana patriarchs had been tempered by divine powers and their regeneration capabilities were extremely strong. However, if they were injured by divine powers and dermic treasures, the power of divine powers would still remain and it would take a long time for them to recover. Many patriarchs had never seen someone like Su Zimo before. Everyone, Araki Takashi must be stalling for time. Di Yun reminded hurriedly and attacked immediately, conjuring another great divine power and releasing it. At the same time, he waved his horsetail whisk and whipped it towards Su Zimo viciously. Bang, bang, bang. Many Mahayana patriarchs reacted as well and channeled their essence spirits once more, releasing lesser and greater divine powers one after another. Many divine powers blanketed the world and blotted out the skies. There was no way to dodge them. Once again, Su Zimo's figure was engulfed by many divine powers. Many patriarchs could see clearly that so many divine powers smashed onto Su Zimo's body and they could even see blood splattering everywhere. A moment later, the power of divine powers dissipated and many patriarchs focused their gazes. In the desert, Su Zimo crawled up slowly from the ground and stretched his neck. There were at least 100 wounds all over his body. However, those wounds were shrouded with a green glow that healed rapidly. In the blink of an eye, Qinglian's true body had recovered to its original state. Pissed, many Mahayana patriarchs gasped. That level of regeneration and powerful life force had already surpassed their understanding. End of chapter. Chapter 1679. After the creation, Qinglian grew to grade 8. Even many great divine powers could not shake its foundation. Even if it suffered some injuries, the powerful life force within the creation Qinglian would circulate automatically and heal its injuries in the blink of an eye. The surrounding Mahayana patriarchs were secretly shocked. If this continued, they would be exhausted to death before Su Zimo could do anything. Aren't you guys here to snatch the human emperor's seal? Surveying his surroundings, Su Zimo slapped his storage bag and said slowly, Right now, I'll let you guys have a taste of the might of the human emperor's seal. Su Zimo held a gigantic seal in his palm. It was pitch black and cold with distinct edges, emanating an ancient and powerful might of the emperor's Tao. Boom! Su Zimo tossed and the human emperor's seal descended from the skies, smashing towards Patriarch Dark Tyrant of Heavenly Dipper sect with a terrifying might. Patriarch Dark Tyrant's expression changed starkly. The human emperor's seal was a treasure of Tianhuang mainland and even emperors of primordial races would be smashed into meat paste against it. Although Su Zimo was at early-stage Mahayana realm and could not release the full might of the human emperor's seal, Patriarch Dark Tyrant did not dare to take it head-on and turn to flee. However, even though he was fast, the human emperor's seal descended even faster. Swoosh! A huge shadow shrouded over. Before the human emperor's seal descended completely, a tremendous pressure had already descended and Patriarch Dark Tyrant's speed decreased immensely, as though he had fallen into a swamp. Patriarch Dark Tyrant's face was pale. When he saw that he could not escape the range of the human emperor's seal, he did not hesitate and swung the saber in his hands, slashing down viciously at the human emperor's seal. Boom! The human emperor's seal smashed down and the ground quaked. Patriarch Dark Tyrant was smashed solidly by the human emperor's seal and turned into meat paste, dying instantly. When he saw that, Di Yun's expression changed and he revealed a hint of fear. However, he was not afraid. That was because as long as he dragged on, the emperors of the Di clan would arrive. At that time, even if Su Zimo had the human emperor's seal, he would be suppressed mercilessly by the emperors. More Mahayana patriarchs gathered here. Among them were some Mahayana patriarchs from Snowdrift Valley, Overlord Palace, and Dipankra Temple. Fellow Taoist Araki Takashi, don't panic. I'll help you. One of the patriarchs from Overlord Palace walked over to Su Zimo with a huge spear on his shoulder. Count me in. A Snowdrift Valley patriarch also stood out. After the convention of the Thousand Races, not all the super sects of Tianhuang mainland were enemies with Su Zimo. For example, Snowdrift Valley, Hegemon Palace, and the 6 Buddhist monasteries had great respect for Araki Takashi. It was not only because of the succession of the human emperor, but also because Araki Takashi had once stood out and led many humans to fight against the primordial races at the convention of the myriad races. It was also because Araki Takashi had selflessly shared the demon soul fruit with them. In the hearts of many Mahayana patriarchs, Araki Takashi was the human emperor of this generation. Thank you for your kind intentions, fellow Taoists. You don't have to make a move. Just watch from the sidelines. Suddenly, Su Zimo raised his voice and said, Many Mahayana patriarchs from Overlord Palace, Snowdrift Valley, and the others paused in hesitation, not understanding why Su Zimo did not want them to interfere. Boom! There was another deafening sound. It was Su Zimo controlling the human emperor's seal to smash another Mahayana patriarch to death. Bang! 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 Di Yun and the other Mahayana patriarchs attacked one after another and released another wave of attacks towards Su Zimo. However, they were still unable to injure Qinglian's true body. On the contrary, the human emperor's seal rampaged through the crowd under Su Zimo's control. If one was struck by the human emperor's seal head-on, they would be turned into a blood mist and even their essence spirits would die on the spot if they were too slow. Even if they were grazed by the human emperor's seal gently, their tendons and bones would definitely be broken. Although Di Yun was an expert ranked 33rd on the Divine Powers ranking, he could not take on the human emperor's seal head-on and could only rely on the horsetail whisk in his hands to neutralize the power of the human emperor's seal as much as possible. Su Zimo charged towards Di Yun with the human emperor's seal in huge strides. Many Mahayana patriarchs were wary of the power of the human emperor's seal and dodged, not daring to advance. In the chaotic battlefield, the two of them were in a stalemate. 33rd on the Divine Powers ranking? Su Zimo sneered, Today, I'll have you removed from the Divine Powers ranking. Mountain lifting. Di Yun did not dare to be careless and hurriedly channeled his essence spirit to conjure a great divine power. Waving his horsetail whisk, he moved a gigantic mountain from afar and smashed it towards Su Zimo. Shatter! Su Zimo raised the human emperor's seal and smashed it against the mountain. Boom! Sand and gravel flew everywhere. Compared to the gigantic mountain, the human emperor's seal was incomparably tiny. However, it shattered the mountain into countless boulders that fell. Su Zimo passed through the sandstorm and charged towards Di Yun. Moon chasing. Di Yun's expression changed slightly. He did not want to take Su Zimo head-on and turned to leave at an alarming speed. Mountain lifting and moon chasing were two great divine powers. The former focused on strength while the latter was a divine power that focused on speed. Take root. Su Zimo channeled his essence spirit and murmured softly. Each time Di Yun's footsteps landed, Thick roots would grow from the void beneath his feet and wrap around his ankles. Of course, that was only a small divine power and could not restrict Di Yun's movements. Di Yun channeled his blood qi and struggled slightly to regain his freedom. However, those roots still caused quite a bit of impact on Di Yun. Under the constant interference, Di Yun's speed slowed down gradually. As for Su Zimo, he closed in rapidly with Heaven's feet and said coldly with a murderous aura, "I think the Di clan must have a death wish in the ancient battlefield. Since that's the case, I'll fulfill your wish." As he said that, Su Zimo tossed the human emperor's seal in his hands and smashed it against Di Yun. Great protection technique. Di Yun roared and the power of divine powers emanated from his body, forming an impenetrable barrier around him. Boom! The human emperor's seal smashed down. With a cracking sound, the human emperor's seal directly shattered this great defensive technique, and the remaining force smashed into Di Yun's body, smashing his body into pieces. Di Yun's essence spirit escaped. Die! Su Zimo's gaze intensified as he closed two fingers and conjured a sword art, prepared to kill Di Yun on the spot. All of a sudden, an extremely terrifying aura descended, and the entire battlefield suddenly fell silent. All of the Mahayana stage ancestors looked up with astonishment on their faces. The might of an emperor! An emperor had arrived personally. "Emperor Yu, save me!" Di Yun yelled hurriedly when he sensed that aura. It was the emperor of the Di clan, Diu. "Araki Takashi, hand over your life." Suddenly, a gigantic palm descended from the void and covered the skies, grabbing towards Su Zimo's figure. There was no doubt that an emperor was attacking personally to suppress an early-stage Mahayana patriarch. The patriarchs of Overlord Palace, Snowdrift Valley, and the other sects thought of a possibility. Just now, Su Zimo did not want them to interfere. Could he have expected this and did not want them to be involved? HTTPS, please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.